Hello and welcome to Spurs Diehards TTID to everybody everywhere. We have a great show for you this afternoon, this evening, this morning, wherever you happen to be. I have a gang of colleagues with me. I'm blessed to call them friends as well. We'll go around the panel and say hello quickly. Adrian, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Looking forward to getting to the show as usual. We haven't played for a few days, so everyone's over the shock of, well, not really a shock of another loss, but we've got strong constitutions, haven't we? Our Spurs immune systems are virtually bulletproof, aren't they? So we can virtually handle anything that's thrown at us. So I'm sure this show will be more light-hearted than any bad PR from the club.
We have another regular with us again, Mr. Stateside Steve. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm incredibly exhausted. That's the reality of it, though. It was a very trying and tiring day, but always make room for Drew and Adrian.
Thank you very much. Mr. Irish Hotspur, or one half of Mr. Jack Konecki, how are you?
Less Irish version, yes. Thanks for having me, guys. Happy weekend to you all. And we're less than a week away from the big one.
We certainly are.
Irish accent is still pathetic, though, isn't it?
And Mr. Chang, how is it in Southeast Asia this morning?
It's very wet, windy, and somewhat humid over here. But otherwise, I think it's still a great start to the weekend. The last weekend for the month of April 2025. Absolutely looking forward to our glory nights under the lights at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in under a week's time from today. Although we might have to stomach the bitter pill of this coming Sunday and the little, I wouldn't call it a discomfort, more like an inconvenience of an away trip to Anfield. But otherwise, absolutely looking forward to spending the weekend, hopefully with stress-free Spurs ruminations. But thank you so very much for having me back on the show. Cannot wait to get this show underway. Having said that, back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chang. Very much pleased to have you here. And as we are with all of our guests, I just want to say a big shout out to Mr. Spurs GCTV in the chat. We got Phil Coy's in the chat, part of the Phil Army. And we also have Spotlight on Spurs, Mr. Luke. Big up to you. So we are going to be going over a few things. Obviously, we'll do the predicted lineup for the weekend. We are going to talk about next week. We are going to talk about all the ins and outs of Tottenham. We're going to talk about Mr. Postecoglou, where he might be next year. We'll give a shout to Bodo Glimt. We'll chat about what they might be all about. But this weekend, guys, just want to run something by you. This Liverpool team here got me thinking that Tottenham, very much like Egypt, because at times this season our backline has looked mummified. In fact, I think there's been a couple of times when Archie Gray's even asked for his mummy. Our midfield has been very much like the recent findings on the Giza Plateau. It's just a cavernous vacancy with a lot of people just wondering what the hell's going on. And then very much like the archaeologists of Egypt digging for evidence of life, we look through tapes of Tottenham digging for evidence of a front line. So suffice to say, it's been a fair old season. I don't know how many more puns I can get in, but I'm going to keep going. We've got Liverpool this weekend. We've got the king himself, Mr. Mo Salah. I've been sitting here all afternoon learning this. Merdafa Dilias de Hector Herder, which is Arabic for, very badly pronounced Arabic, for what have I done to deserve this? So, boys, we have Liverpool. I don't even know where to begin because of all the things that I didn't need, it was an away trip to Liverpool. We'll start with you, Jack. It makes me go a little bit cold inside. My hairs stand up, knowing that they only need 1 point to win the Premier League, and knowing that we're just there for the taking most weekends. I mean, it's one of those things. We say that, it's going to probably be a loss. It's going to be bad. We don't mind, but then the things will happen and we'll actually sit and watch it and we'll all go out of our minds. So give us your thoughts, Jack.
I mean, it feels like we're there for the taking even more because this is a less important game for us because we're only, like I said earlier, less than a week away from our more important game next Thursday. So we're there for the taking in that regard. And that I think a lot of us expect Ange Postecoglou to probably make once again some rotations. The players will have their mind probably on the other fixture than they really will on this one. And after the Forest defeat, where I did think they tried for the most part, despite the mistakes, I think they were trying to get back into the game. I think they deserve something from it. Who's to say they're going to put in similar performance, against this Liverpool team? I wouldn't be that surprised that the fans will roll over quickly and also the players could roll over quickly for this one. So there's so many reasons that we could be more for the taking than usual, even when we have been trying our best. I don't know what my expectations really are. I've said that a million times. I'll go into these games with no expectations, but like you said, Drew, probably when we go a goal down or something, I'll be ripping my hair out as per usual. But yeah, it's one of these games where it just is maybe just another opportunity just to see the team in action before we descend into the madness on Thursday. And I think that's a good thing. It's just another sample size, another bit of evidence that we can work with, I guess, to make grandiose conclusions like I usually do.
Yeah, fair play, fair play. I mean, it is just, I would have said not even, I was going to say a few weeks, but it probably wouldn't. It's probably been a while. I would have said at one point or another, it would be very typically Spursy for us to be in this situation. Then come Sunday, rock up to Anfield, put on a performance and make Liverpool wait another week. But I just don't even have confidence we can do that anymore. Steve, thoughts?
Well, it's going to be certainly an interesting weekend. As far as my expectations, they're incredibly low. And I think this is the first week in quite a long time that I actually came into a match week, not necessarily feeling the atmosphere and feeling the buzz of a match week. It was interesting because I read an article midweek, and it was from Dom Solanke, who pretty much confirmed everything that I thought was going on, when he basically said that, hey, 100% we're focused on Europa League, and 100% we feel like we can win Europa League. And that just lets me know that, for the lack of a better term, most of these first team players are throwing a lot of their effort and energy into at least getting to a Europa League final, understanding where they are at the league and understanding that it's pretty much over. I'm not saying that they've thrown in the towel on the league, but that being said, when you look at their last two performances, a lot of mistakes, a lot of head scratching mistakes against Forest. You saw it again this last weekend. And yet, what's funny is that was sandwiched with a good performance against Frankfurt, where they looked like they were 100% turned on, at least in the midfield and the defensive side of things. So I just, for me, it just feels like, this is probably going to be, a weekend of just going through the motions. I mean, maybe Ange is going to give certain guys some minutes just to keep their sharpness up and sharpness ready for Thursday. But outside of that, would you guys be surprised if we actually saw some youth this weekend?
But we haven't seen that a lot with Ange. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. That stick gets thrown at him. I think he's used youth as
outside of Archie Gray. Outside of Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall. I mean, I'm not talking like Callum Oluwisi or Dane Scarlett. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I think it's one of those things. I think it's one of those. It would have been great to have seen more of the youth, but then I hear everybody say, "Well, we can't do any worse." And yeah, I think there is evidence that potentially you could. I mean, just even the opening goal against Aston Villa in the cup, I mean, essentially was Mikey Moore's fault because he wasn't in the right position. Now, I'm not leveling all of the blame on Mikey Moore because obviously he's a 17-year-old kid, but I just think we've already got kids playing, and then there has been an argument to, let's just play more kids because more kids couldn't do any worse. And I don't know. I feel like there's a slippery slope. But then there are times this season when Jack's right. He could have, I think there's probably potential that he could have given few more minutes to a few more of the youngsters. We'll chat about a few more of the pieces of the squad later on because we're going to go through some potential ins and outs. But Chang, obviously you said in your intro, Liverpool is never fun away, and I feel like we're almost passing ships in the night. There was a time a few seasons ago when they were rocking up to Wembley and we were putting 4 past them, and we were finished in the Champions League and they were finishing 8th. And how quickly things change.
I think that is a indictment really of the way that the progression of our team, our project, so-called project, this rebuild under Big Ange has progressed in the past 2 years, or rather should I say decline. And I mean the comparisons, the stark comparison you just mentioned at the very beginning of the show, Mo Salah, and you compare him with Son. I mean, I am still waiting for the Son we have known and come to love to just resurface and end his Spurs career on a bang. But even right now, I still am waiting for our captain, our club captain, to make his all-important 462nd competitive appearance that will see him level with Ted Ditchburn, our late goalkeeper, as our 6th highest all-time Spurs player in Lily White. So that in itself is saying a lot, and this particular Sunday will be no exception to our away woes, our downward spiral, the way we've just gone off script. So I'm still looking forward to the match. Don't get me wrong. Nonetheless, despite everything that's transpired this season, and for me, there is no better way to kick off, or rather to prepare for our crunch midweek fixture against against Bodo Glimt by putting the lads to the test, to the stress test away at Anfield. But I feel that this might have come at the wrong time, particularly given the way we've lost back-to-back league games now against Wolves and against Forest. Yes, the win against Southampton was a bit of a respite, but I mean, all I will say is my final thoughts on Liverpool away is be careful what you wish for. And this has a lot to do with our second last league game of last season, when a lot of not a lot anyway, but there were certain circles of Spurs fans who were hoping against all hope that we would not beat City at home in our final league game of last season, and this exactly mirrors that, Mr. Drew. And again, like I said, be careful what you wish for. So I mean, there's that one thing where rivalry against our N17 rivals is concerned, and then there is also saving our form, restoring our battered pride. So I mean, as long as the players put in a shift, they give it their all, I will still be fully behind them. Come the end of the season, come what may. But things don't look all that promising. But I will say this about Big Ange, our players, and also the fans who hopefully will be turning up in full voice come Sunday. Forget about midweek. Let's just focus on what's at hand, which is this away crunch tie against the current league leaders and probably league champions of 2025. I would emphasize on avoiding injuries and suspensions. That's all I have to say on this. Having said that, back to you, Mr. Drew.
Thank you, Chang. Adrian, I'm looking at the Premier League table here, and I mean, it's pretty disturbing. Obviously, languishing in 16th. Them lot up the road are in 2nd. But there is an argument in my mind, at least, because, I'm a lunatic, that if they don't win the Champions League and we do win the Europa Cup or the Europa League, we had a better season than them, haven't we? Even if we don't beat Liverpool on Sunday, like bigger picture, right?
We would have had a more successful season.
Right.
It
Yeah,
depends
that's
on
just
how you determine success,
that's just me.
isn't it? The
Yeah,
strange thing is, do you remember it wasn't so long ago we were in the Champions League final and they were in the UEFA Cup final and we both lost, right?
Yeah, very
And
true. And we happened to lose to.
Do you want us
Liverpool.
both to win? This is a good question for later. Do you want us both to win? Save that for later, right? Because you know what fans are like. It's a bit like tomorrow's game, Sunday's game. When we played Man City at home, I wanted us to win that game. When we lost, Spurs fans weren't bothered because it virtually clinched the start for Man City. I get where they're coming from. I'm just from a different generation where you just didn't think that way, right? And I still don't. I just believe you should go out and win every game. But I got both sides of the argument. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if we win anything they don't, of course we've done better than them because they are what they are. And we are Spurs fans. You know, we are human.
Right.
You know?
No, absolutely. Well, yeah, and another. The reason I was actually looking at the table was because I wanted to see what Liverpool's form was, and it looks like they won five out of the last 6 and lost 1. So I mean, it is going to be a tough ask on Sunday, especially if we play a somewhat weakened team or we play some youngsters and they're going all out to try and win the league at their place, right? I mean, it is. I mean, you do kind of expect the inevitable, right?
Yeah, they only need a draw, and if you and they probably think, well, 4 games to go, Arsenal are going to drop at least a point anyway, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right. So,
I mean, I would think that if they had the Champions League to go as well, then they might play for a draw. But I can just see them going all out just to try and win it in front of the fans. No.
Who have Liverpool got next in Europe?
I don't think they have they? They're knocked out, aren't they?
Not in Europe.
They're out.
They're out. Oh, yeah, of course they're out. Yeah. Of course. See, this is what evening shows do.
This is all they've got to play for. They've got to play for. What if I can be so bold?
And I think Slot said it won't be displaying the trophy if they beat us anyway. If it's at the ground, like obviously they want to do a full celebration, won't they? And open bus parade, you know. Last time we had an open bus parade, it was drawn by a horse and cart, wasn't it? You know what I mean? So
yeah, tell me about it. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll move on just quickly. We'll have a little look at the predicted lineups because I would be interested to kind of get everyone's thoughts. Jack, we'll come back to you again because you suggested earlier on that potentially we could be looking at a few changes. I mean, I said, you know, what do you think's going to happen? What would you like to see? Do those two views line up, or are you expecting to sit there and not quite see what you want? Take the floor.
I'd like to see rotational changes to the back line. I don't know if I need to see the same players that will start Thursday night play in this game. What I do feel like, though, with Spurs is that we still have been struggling at putting away chances and being convincing in the final third. We do a good job getting there. We do a good job getting into the right positions, but actually putting the ball in the back of the net has been a real struggle. I think Forrest would be a prime example of that, if not one of the best examples. I'd go with, or at least to begin things with, I know Sonny is going to come back for the first leg, but I would try to go with whatever forward line he plans on starting against Bodo Glimt, just for the sanctity or for the assurance of getting some type of chemistry and familiarity with each other. I think a lot of times Ange Postecoglou has made a lot of rotations. You know, sometimes he's been criticized for that. Plenty of times I think unfairly so. But, you know, for this game, I think especially up top, I'd like to see whatever lineup he's confident in, you know, in terms of the forward line. I think he should go with those guys, whether that's Matisse Tell, Brennan Johnson, Odebear, Richarlison, Solanke, you name it. I'm not too sure who he's, you know, confident in, but I think he should go with those guys just to have that familiarity with each other and maybe get a little practice run, if you want to call it that, before they play against Bodo Glimt at home. And in terms of the midfield, something a bit similar, but Drew, you know, I'm a big Bentancur fan where, you know, I know you're a bit more, let's say, balanced or, you know, a bit more fair in terms of criticizing him when he does need to be criticized. And I'd probably look to give Bentancur a rest after what I thought was a shocker against Forest. I thought he was actually one of the worst players on the pitch that day. So the midfield, I'd be fine with changes. Forward line, I'm going to be stubborn about it. I think I'd like to see no changes there for what we would then see on Thursday.
You think with Bentancur, you know how people sort of suggest that Ben Davies, you know, he's a 7 out of 10 every week. He's real solid. Do you think Bentancur, he seems to be either an 8 or a 9 or a 3 or a 4? Like there
I hear
doesn't
that.
really seem to be like you have flashes and moments. And for me, that is kind of why I don't put him up there. Like I think I've said time and time again when he left Juventus, if he was a Sami Khedira or if he was a Toni Kroos sort of player, he'd have gone to Real Madrid, he'd have gone to Barcelona, he'd have gone to your Bayern Munich, places like that. But typically, as a rule, players from championship winning teams don't come to Spurs. It's the other way round. So I mean, I Dave pointed out the other day. He sort of got it from my point of view because I hold him to such a high standard. But I'm sort of the more and more I watch him play, regardless of kind of your injuries and your suspensions and your concussing yourself from a gammy corner, Steve. Like I think Juventus won 3 Scudettos back to back in spite of Bentancur and not because of him. I mean,
he played pretty regularly in those teams. He was like a regular player. Yeah. I think just what ended up happening was they started to look to change their squad post Conte, and that's kind of when Bentancur also as well went. And you could say that also Bentancur, like many of the dodgy transfers that Paratici has done, he was one of the Paratici transfers that maybe we were able to sneak in for a small fee. But that's just me. That's just me.
Fair play. Steve, what's your take on the squad, the potential lineup, Bentancur?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jack on this. I do see a need for rotation at the back line. This seems to be a match where maybe it might be beneficial to let Christian Romero catch a breather this weekend. I would be more inclined to start Kevin Danso in that right center back position. I like the idea of Destiny Udogie and Jed Spence at the fullback positions. Jed Spence on the right this time around instead of having Pedro Porro out there. It's baffling, isn't it? Right, because there's times where Bentancur. You look at his form and you look at his ability to get forward and find creative spaces and be aggressive in the attack. And then there's matches like Nottingham Forest where it just leaves your head scratching, just kind of wondering, did you even really care to show up today? I would also like to see some rotation in the midfield as well too. This is actually an opportunity to get James Maddison back if he's available, to get some minutes in his legs. Another opportunity to get Kulu some familiarity in that midfield 3 as well too before the head of Thursday. But this is also an opportunity to continue to run Bergvall out there at the 6. I really like that midfield 3. Seemingly looks like the most attractive that Spurs can put out this weekend. And as far as the forward line, again, I tend to agree with Jack on this one. You have to put something on the field that is going to at least make Liverpool think defensively. And there are there are opportunities where Spurs get in good positions, and if they would just show a little bit more bravery with some of their forward lines that would actually spread that defense a little bit thin. They actually do have the players that can put shots on net. We just haven't been seeing it necessarily. It's interesting, right? So yeah, I'd probably start Tell, Solanke, and Wilson Odegaard up front. I was going to say Brendan Johnson, but I just don't think this is a good matchup for Brendan Johnson.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is why the football manager get paid the big bucks, right, Chang? I mean, it's what do you do? Do you play all your heavy hitters just to get some minutes in their legs, just to keep them fresh? Do you wrap them in cotton wool, but then run the risk of them not being quite as match sharp as they could be? Do you split the difference? I mean, who'd be a manager, eh?
I mean, this is a very tough question, and you can see why Big Ange himself has come under fire, under very, very heavy criticism from not only just us fans, but even from certain quarters of the media with regards to his team selections, his strategies, his match day squads, and also his overall planned for this season. And for me, Liverpool away is going to be no different. For me, if I were Big Ange or if I were Spurs manager, and I know that I have a all-important first leg tie just round the corner in midweek, I would take this opportunity to sort of stress test some of the bench warmers, the youngsters, even the substitutes, to prove to me why you should be considered for match day squad come Thursday night. And for me, away at Liverpool, this crucible that we are staring down the gauntlet of almost sort of like becoming the honor guard for the would-be champions. I would say just feel those players who have everything to prove and nothing to lose. I mean, just only 7 hours ago at 10:30 p.m. on a Friday night, I was watching the entirety of our second half home group game performance against Elfsborg, and the last half hour or so watching the likes of Dane Scarlett, I think it was Mikey Moore and Ajayi score those all-important goals that secured our win against Elfsborg. I would say play these youngsters, play the players who are hungry to prove themselves, have everything to gain and absolutely nothing to lose by just giving their all against the would-be champions, and give Ange food for thought, and even us fans something to cheer about. And for me, I think that would be the perfect way to just wrap up our domestic April on a high, even though it might be a losing high, but it's going to be a high nonetheless. If those players I mentioned earlier, the Ajayis or Oluwase's or Mikey Moores or Dane Scarlett's, if they have something to prove, something to offer, maybe even something to give us some optimism for next season. And having said that, I don't think we can ill afford to sort of put our heavy hitters in the firing line and make them a doubt for Thursday night. So having said that, my final thoughts on Liverpool away in terms of our squad: rotate as much as possible, but maybe not too much where it completely throws off the dynamic and the mechanics of Ange ball, if that even is still a thing. So keep the team fresh, keep it energetic, keep it dynamic, but at the same time also do not risk those potential starters on Thursday night. And let's just see where Sunday takes us. Let's just see how it evolves, how it takes shape, and then only after Sunday then shall we worry about midweek. So yeah, all the best to anyone who's going to be putting on Lily White. Either you're in the starters or on the bench, I would still be giving you my full support. And please, by all means, whoever it is you are who's going to be starting come Sunday, give us something to be optimistic about going into midweek. And like I said, give us fans and even Big Ange some food for thought as to why you should be considered and counted for come Thursday night. Having said that, back to you, Mr. Drew.
Thank you, sir. Adrian, I keep on getting told that this Tottenham squad is actually pretty strong. So I'm going to ask you this. If both teams had, if you could just have a free-for-all pick, does any of our starting 11, does any of our team get into Liverpool's team?
I could see Romero and
that's one for the chat as well. If anybody thinks if there's any of our players get into, and I'm going to go around the chat and ask this, any of our players without a doubt just push somebody out of this Liverpool lineup. You were saying Romero, Adrian?
I could definitely say Romero and Kulusevski. Other players, it would depend on form. And Maddison's got good numbers this season for a creative player, 11-11, I think. 11 goals, 11 assists. The problem is that when we had this discussion, remember a while back about, as Cooley first comes in, everyone's saying, Spurs fans are arguing he was better than Saka at Arsenal and all that. And at the time, both of them were playing really well, both players. Then he drops off, and now he's been outstanding for us this year, hasn't he, Cooley? So, and I've always rated him there. I think it's a fantastic centre back, but others would disagree with me, and that's fine. It's all subjective. Those two other players in their team would really have to be in good form. Even Sonny, I mean, they wanted to buy him at one time. Klopp wanted him at one time. But, if players if Doggy was on the top form we see last season, I would say yes, but he hasn't been. He's been poor. He's just shown signs of coming back in the last few games, getting his mojo back. Yeah, so not many. Spence, again, all right, he's looked good. Has he done enough? Possibly. I mean, again, it's like comparisons, but you'd have to say probably about 2. I'd say about 2 at present. But others, if possibly, they had a season in good form under them,
Yeah. What about you? What do you reckon, Jack? Any standouts
in terms of the Spurs squad for tomorrow?
Well, just any even no, just in terms of just the same question I asked Adrian. If you thought that any of our Spurs players would actually get into this Liverpool squad, I'm just trying to gauge how strong this squad actually is, or how being as we're playing arguably the best team in Europe at times this season. What is the gulf?
I think I raised
a couple of players.
I think I raised my eyebrows, when you said that, Spurs' squad is strong. I'd argue Mickey Van de Ven gets in there, and then you would probably put Van Dijk off to the right or something like that, even though Van Dijk does play on the left.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from that, you could make a case for Jed Spence, maybe because we're Spurs fans, but in terms of the general football fan, they probably would need to see more of him. And then the rest of the squad, I'd say no, really. That's especially the forward line. The forward line, absolutely not. But I'd make a case for Van Dijk, and I'd make a case for Jed Spence.
Yeah. Well, especially when this midfield clicks as well for Liverpool, when they have Szoboszlai, McAllister, and Gravenberch, and they're all doing things, and they're all singing off the same hymn sheet, which they have seemed to have just been able to do. And to be fair, they've not really played together all that long. This is a relatively new midfield, but I guess when you've got the likes of Mo Salah up in front of you, and even Darwin Núñez can do a job arguably, and then with Douglas Luiz on the other side, I mean, it is a pretty potent front six. But Steve, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would think Arne Slot would know how to handle one of the best Dutch center backs in the world, in Mikey Van de Ven. I think that's kind of a slam dunk choice right there. But yeah, I probably would potentially agree with Kulusevski. Kulusevski, when he's 100% sharp, 100% fit, I think he's definitely a game changer. But I also think Destiny Udogie, when he's also 100% on his game, I actually think his ceiling is potentially arcing to be one of the best 10 left backs in the world.
Wow. Okay.
That dude is amazing. He's already starting to get run with Italy on a more permanent basis now. And I think he's only 22, 23. Yeah. So I mean, he still hasn't even reached his prime potential yet. And so the ceiling is still there. And I think depending on the fit and the coach that you pair him with, and especially the way that he likes to be used best. Yeah, I think that development curve would be awesome under Arne Slot. As far as Jed Spence goes, I think I would tend to agree that I think this year has been great watching him. But as far as Liverpool, I just don't know. I don't know about that. And the question for me is, would James Maddison actually show up and give Arnie Slot 110% week in and week out. That's that I guess that's the $50 million question when it comes to a transfer fee. It's like, is James, like if James Madison, wouldn't show up and give 110% for Leicester City or Spurs, what makes me think he's going to do it for Liverpool?
I think Udogie and Spence are kind of the opposite of each other with Spurs fans versus the neutral football fan. I think, the neutral fan does rate Destiny Udogie really highly. I felt like he got into a lot of people's compared 11s, Udogie. But then Spurs fans, we watch way too much of our own players. So the recency bias, plays a huge part. Whereas with Jet Spence, it's like based on this season, I would say Jet Spence has had a better season than Destiny Udogie. But most people aren't watching Spurs on a regular basis like we are. And so you're probably right that if you base last season and this season together, probably most football fans would still rate Destiny higher. But if you were to go by stock market trends of players, it's almost like Jet Spence is a bit on the rise with Spurs fans. And then Udogie has been heavily criticized, in my opinion, unfairly heavily criticized this year. But he's definitely gotten some
the crazy thing about players like Udogie as well, and I think it's just a frustration, a fan frustration thing, and I think the frustration just is from the season, right? Like if you were to draw, or if there was like a pie chart or a graph, it would be like, Destiny Udogie minutes played level of approval or something like that. I don't quite know, but it seems to be like 1 minute it's like, oh, he's the best in the world. Like you'll have one good game and everyone's like, oh, he's amazing. Then he'll drop off and have a bad game. And it's not just that he's bad or had a bad game or he's young. It's we need to get rid because he's the worst left back in the world. And then he comes back and then he has another good game. And it's like, wow, this guy, and when he was in Italy, he was such a baller and blah, blah, blah. It was so just one way or the other.
Sounds like another Bentancur complex.
Oh, right. Yeah, maybe. And I just want to, I think I don't want to put words in Steve's mouth, but big up Daniel 90 as well. Really appreciate you being here, mate. I think in terms of Kulu potentially, could he play in this Liverpool team? I think probably as part of the midfield rotation. I don't think anybody's removing Salah. Big up. Appreciate you.
But you know what the biggest thing that's going, the biggest thing that crosses my mind, especially when it comes to Kulusevski, Van de Ven, Udogie, and some of these young players, as good as they are, most of these players are still young and they still haven't figured out how to win at this level yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like when you look at the dynamic of Liverpool, a lot of those dudes know how to win and know how to win big games and know exactly how to turn it up in big games as well too. And I think that's still something Udogie and even Kulusevski are still trying to figure out.
Yeah. Well, I don't like to. I feel like I'm stuck on repeat sometimes, but I have kind of brought up in the past, even even just that back five: Alisson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Konate, Van Dijk, and Andy Robertson. How many games they've played together at the absolute highest level and pulled games out of the. Do you know what I mean? Like. They've won games in so many different ways. They've come back from games. They've absolutely outclassed teams in games. They've been staring down the barrel of what could be considered one of the best Barcelona teams you'd ever seen, and they just said, "Hold my beer," and they just took them apart. So I just, I know there's something to be said for playing cohesively together for a period of time. But then there's also something to be said for having somebody steering that ship that knows exactly what they want and also hasn't probably had to deal with as many, injuries, just as many things as potentially we've had to deal with in the background.
That's a good point.
Chang, I guess a lot of it really comes down to, you touched on it earlier, sort of patience, I think, needing these kids or just needing to give them time, but also being in a position where we are kind of, I'd say we are Tottenham Hotspur. There is a certain level that needs to be expected or that is to be expected. So you can't just rely on, I think it's one thing to say, okay, well, we're going to rely on kids and we're going to buy young. But if that's the case, then we need a lot more patience than we've got now, right? Because that could take 3-4 years. Whereas I think everybody is kind of screaming for us to go the other way, because if you look at the nucleus and if you look at the team that we've got, if you were able to push the boat out, up the wages a little bit, spend a little bit more on a little bit more quality, there is the potential there that you could sprinkle in some magic, and actually there's an argument that we're not far off. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I completely understand and agree with where you're coming from in terms of having this very dynamic balance between the old and the young, the veterans and the greenhorns, as far as our squad and our starting 11 is concerned. And I really was hoping to see a lot more Solankis or Bentancurs or even Kevin Densos in our squad at the beginning of this season. Unfortunately, it's just the one Solanke that came in as far as senior players are concerned at the beginning of the season last summer, and we did try and bolster that sometime in January with Kevin Denso. But unfortunately, it's still the same old with regards to our recruitment, whereby we are still bringing in the Matthias Tells and the Oda Beers to sort of supplement what I can only describe as a very experimental and makeshift forward line, which I think is where we are severely lacking. Not only for this season, but even last season as well, when we saw Richarlison have this purple patch and then suddenly go missing come crunch time at the business end of last season. So I honestly feel that we should supplement our squad this coming summer with firepower where it really matters. And if there are to be any more Luka Vuskovics or Ashley Phillips or whatever players we are still linked with, even a Matthias Tell, which I mentioned earlier, whom I just read before coming on the show today, that he is being considered for a permanent move in the summer. Now that Bayern has considered him to be,
surplus
yeah,
to
right,
requirements.
surplus to requirements. Thank you for taking the words right out of my mouth. So
Yeah.
I feel that when it comes to actually signing smart, especially where in positions and departments that you cannot afford to stinge on, like I just mentioned earlier, the forwards department, where the goals that win the games that has been lacking severely when you look at the injury record to both Richarlison and Solanke this season. I honestly feel that we need a severe upgrade on Richarlison if that opportunity rises, and not just make loan signings like Matthias Tell a permanence. I still do welcome any other Lucas Bergvalls or Vuskovics or even Ashley Phillipses down the line. But come next season, we definitely need the seniority. We definitely need the experience, especially I believe it was either Mr. Stroker or Mr. Steve who mentioned earlier, or even Mr. Kinnicky, who mentioned that we need players that have that winning mentality, that's sort of silverware track record. And I mean, any one of us here would definitely trade in Son, Solanke, and Richarlison for Harry Kane right now. That is just how much we miss him, and I'm not even trying to make a meal out of this. Nor am I trying to be funny here. I would, hand on heart, in a heartbeat, I would trade all three of them, Solankis, Richarlisons, and Sons, for just to have Kane back for one full season, whether it's under Big Ange or someone else, I couldn't care less. With him leading the forward line, with Bergvall and Madison behind him, we would really cook. But that's just me and my delusion. So having said that, my final words on our squad balance: spend wisely and recruit wisely, spend where it's needed, and spend big in departments that we really need to bolster in order to win games, even if it's by the scruff of the neck. Having said that, back to you, Mr. Drew.
Thank you, sir. Adrian, am I out of my mind? Are we 2-3 players away from cooking, or have we got a lot more work to do?
There's a lot more work to do. We can bring 2 or 3 in that would transform us, but
Right.
is it going to guarantee success? Not well, no, because there are no guarantees, are there? But it's not a question of that. It's just that our forward line, although we could do with bringing in a defensive midfielder and a left back, our forward line concerns me the most. If you take all our players and all our wingers, Sonny, we don't know if a fit, rejuvenised, injury-free Son would show us what he's shown us before on the eye test. His stats are good this season with something like 11 goals and 11 assists or whatever he's got. His numbers are good. But so a lot of our forwards' numbers are good. Sankey, 12 of 8 assists. Madison, about 11 and 11. So, but the problem is, if you're going to win, if you're looking to win the Premier League, you've got to look to score 100 goals. And it's all right bringing in fancy players. And although Tell and Odegaard look good on the eye, they're not oven ready. Yang Min Hook's out, he's not oven ready. We don't know what's happening with Manor Solomon. We'll probably sell him for 15, 20 million to Leeds if they don't have a look at him in the pre-season and decide, no, Leeds, you're going to wait. We want to have a look at him, see if we've made a mistake here. Then you've got Johnson, has he got a higher level? And then you're looking at St. Lanky and Richarlison. And when you look at previous strikers through the decades I supported this club, they don't just come near them. They don't come nowhere near these strikers. They're just not natural finishers. And back in the day, you called a natural goal scorer, get you 20 goals a season. Now, if you crawl across the line with Sonny with 17, you share the golden boot with Salah. What's happened to football over these decades, to change that way? I mean, they've stopped breeding strikers. One, probably because they're so expensive, right? To have 4 at a club, when you used to have 4. And 2, because the horseshoe football, which some of us would refer to as horse shit football, because it's the same football you see over and over again, right? Now, I love the club, and the squad's not crap. It's underperformed, we know that. And we've had the worst injuries I can recall in my history of supporting Spurs. Mind you, you didn't have such big squads back in the day anyway. But no, we definitely need to get quality in the forward line. And I don't see them strikers out there either. I mean, where are all these Galacticos? Where are all these super strikers you could pick off? You could look at Gyökeres, you could look at Vlahovic. Maybe this Ekentike might be. But fans get excited over seeing a player over a couple of games. All right, I know they won the Champions League when they had Marmoush in their team under Glasner, right? But no, we need a lot more firepower. Well, what we need is goal scorers. You can have fancy players. I've said it before, you can have Messi and Ronaldo on both wings. If they don't score goals, you're not winning a league. All your forwards need to be scoring a good proportion of goals. And you need fluidity and cohesion and a link. And you used to have this at least with pairs of strikers, even if you changed them, you had that sort of telepathic understanding between them. You don't see that. We've got a disjointed front three. Admittedly, we've scored probably the third amount of goals in the Premier League, but it's just there's even fans when they critique our forwards, there's no belief in them. There's no belief in the forwards. I've seen cohesion with our midfield recently when we started playing a regular free, whether it's Decky, Madison, Bentancur, Decky, Madison, Decky, Madison, Bergval or Berryval, whatever. He seems to be those 3 or 4 without bringing in Sarr for games. Are you going to blend Sarr in amongst 2 of those with 2 of those, or Gray amongst 2 of those without bringing another man in? So, and the surprising thing about our back 6 or 7, if you include the fullbacks, the 3 fullbacks, and we've got the centre backs with Dragusin out, and 3 might come in Vuskovic, Dorrington, and Phillips. There's enough there, even if Romero goes, not to be a concern if you didn't replace him. But the point
there's an argument that if we don't qualify for Europe, there's too many there, right?
Well, yeah, there's that. And how will the youngsters get games next season? Where's the pathway gone now without them 8 extra games minimum, right? There's that, and the problem with the, with no matter how good our back 6, 7, 8, or whatever you want to call them are, when we've got them, including 2 goalkeepers and a good selection for the back 4, we've let in so many soft goals this season, which is part of a different argument to me. Well, if you get rid of Ange, do you sack all the coaching staff as well? And get rid of the science team as well? Get rid of but that's another point. Back to you, Drew, anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would probably think that if you do, I mean, he's had so many people. He didn't bring his own staff in with him, did he? So we've been hiring people sort of along the way for him to work with him. And I mean, let's go down this road quickly for a minute, because, I mean, is there an argument, Jack, that part of the reason that we find ourselves where we are is because that core of coaches, on the one hand, you can praise Ange for giving these guys, opportunities. On the other hand, does it feel like kind of a mishmash of people that haven't quite done it anywhere? And now you've got, I don't know, like a kind of almost a bit of a mediocre coaching team. And that's why you've got a kind of a bit of a mediocre product on the field.
I mean, he was praised for that, like, initially, because he didn't have any attachments to a coaching staff. I think the reason behind that was, though, is that let's be honest, like, he came from very small leagues where I don't know if you could carry around a large coaching staff with you. Like, if you're going from Australia to Japan, then eventually to Scotland, like, maybe once he gets to Celtic, he could, potentially start to gather, a coaching staff of some kind. But that whole idea of, having 4 or 5 guys that you're absolutely married to, that you just take everywhere you go, like, a boy band or something. I think you need to be a proven manager. Like, I would imagine that most,
like Pochettino and his guys, right?
Pochettino, Conte, like these guys who have actually done it. I would be surprised if, like, managers who are out in Japan or, let's say, Bulgaria, these sort of places, like, I really doubt that they have a semblance of coaching staff that they take with them. It's just that I don't think it works that way. So Ange, to a degree, has done very well by just, working with who he has and who's come with him. And you have to respect that. But I don't know how much that's hindered or hurt us. To a degree, it probably has, just because he has to reinstill his philosophy and his coaching ideas to different people all the time. And some guys might be better at implementing it more than others. And, the elephant in the room, or the Ryan Mason of the room, also comes into questions. This guy is always around and always is forced to be around by the likes of Daniel Levy. And, who's to say? Ryan Mason, in my opinion, did okay every time that he was sort of the interim manager. For an interim manager, he does all right. But, he's gone from so many different styles, from, like, Conte, I think he was there with Nuno, if I'm trying to remember correctly, like Jose as well. Like, just, it's so many different styles and philosophies that he's had to sort of understand and try to get behind. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So, Drew, you're probably right. Just on a quick point on Adrian's thing about the players having good numbers, I disagree with that. If we actually did have aspirations of us finishing inside the top 4 or 5 this season, we would have someone with like 17, 18 goals right now. But Brennan Johnson, bless his heart, is our best goal scorer right now. And he's like 15th or something, like, ranked in terms of the top goal scorers, but he's our best one at this moment in time. So that says a lot about where we are as a squad and as a forward line.
I would like to add just to that. I mean, if the reason I say that, and I'm usually very positive about Spurs, but I'm also very practical, and I won't defend the indefensible. Our problems go back to 2019 when this stadium opened. And Poch left in November, didn't he? Because we hadn't won an away game for ages, and he went on and on and on with his cryptic press conferences about new house, new furniture. And when we did bring players in, it was too late. We needed players brought in that 16-17 season when we could have won that title. And then the squad, which was the youngest when Poch made it the youngest squad, then started getting over, showed a bit of fatigue and leg weary, needed freshen up, and it wasn't. And then when it was too late, leaving that, we get an Lo Celso, we get an Ndombele. But that wasn't ever going to be enough to fix things, right?
Mhm.
And then we've come through a period, and even under Langer in this last 2 seasons, if you include the loans, players out on loans to buy now and all that, we've shifted 31 or 33 players.
Mhm.
Now, 8 of those might come back to the academy because they're on loan. I'm not saying like they've all gone from the club or anything like that. We know that the money for Højbjerg's got to be paid this season because that's an obligation to buy from Marseille. Gil will probably be sold as well. We don't know what's going to happen with Solomon, whether we sell him, keep him, or whatever. And so we still, this shows how far we had fallen after we got rid of Poch, that we never saw the signs of like deterioration. Only when we deteriorate and the fans start saying, "Oh, look, what's gone wrong? What's happening?" You know, and then we didn't spend no money in 518 days under Poch. Now, he might have turned down players, and if he did, fair play to him, because if he didn't think they were good enough, then you don't want them. And we're still trying to fix now from what was the precursor for all our troubles that we've gone since 2019. We're still trying to fix it. And we're not going to do it in the summer unless we shit a miracle and get 3 or 4 in, which we'll have the money to do, because if you sell Romero, Basuma, Richarlison, Gil, Solomon, you're going to bring in well over 100 odd mil. You'll have over 60 million. If you went out and put 40 million down on 4 players, you would have enough to bring in 4 quality players. But where are they? Where are they at the forward line, especially? I just don't see them. Like
that's fair enough.
Danny always jokes about me liking Vlahovic, but I could be wrong. He could come here and he could be crap. Garoka he's done well in Portugal. Everyone's looked at him, but no one's took the plunge with him. So they're all doubting the quality of the Portuguese league. You know, he was at Coventry, wasn't he? You know, and you can look at Pender, you can look at Sesko. I mean, you can look at Nico Williams, probably as other players that people would rave about, but it's still a risk when you bring them in. That's why if you're going for Kuna, Buemo, Wissa, or even Delap, I mean, but is Delap going to get you them 17, 20 goals that Jack's gone about? Not in his first season. I don't think so. I don't think he's there yet. Look at Kane. He had 4 loans. He went to Leicester, Millwall, Orient, I think, and Norwich, didn't he? Did nothing. Come to Spurs. Van der Vaart said, "Oh, he's shit," right? Little did we know what we were getting. And then Sherwood gives him his debut, and Levy moans it in white, you playing Soldado, and the rest is history. You know, when these top class play, you need a bit of luck in the transfer market, and sometimes you're the lucky club that gets the player that comes through and smashes it. Look at Bale when he first came to us. We couldn't win a game with him at left back, and look what he turned into. But when you strike gold, you need to build on it, and we've not done that. And that is the thing that irks me more than anything. We had opportunities in the past to in the 80s, right? After we got relegated, and I watched this playing in the second division, we come up, and Argentina won the World Cup in '78, and we got our dealers in Villa for 750 grand. You didn't talk about world-class players then. We knew they were good players, but there were still doubts whether these guys were going to do it in the Premier League, right? And you only had to watch them. And we had Oddle, and we had Perryman, and when you went to the ground then, you smelt it and you believed it. We are going to win something. There wasn't any doubt in it. It's either this season or next. You could see it. The style of football we played was like Man City have played recently, right? You had Odegaard, Dealers and Villas in midfield, 3 world-class players, right? It was probably better than Man City's. We didn't have any defenders in the midfield, unless one of them was injured, right? But it was better than Man City's midfield, even with De Bruyne in it at its best. It was better because the 3 players were that. And I just knew we're going to win something. We come close to winning the League one year, finished 3rd, I think, or 2nd or whatever. But that was injuries then. You only had squads of 14, right? So that screwed us. But I get a bit of a buzz about this Europa League. I just think I've got just feeling about it. But there's still a lot of work to be done at this club, and to turn the fan base around and make them happy. And we know that any manager comes in now, even with this squad, is going to have a better season than we've had in the league, right? But so it's frustrating for me. I'm still positive. I think we're going to win the Europa League. I'm still positive about this. But it's just the direction of travel that the club's going with Levy and all that. That's what I find frustrating.
Yeah. Well, especially as well, and I think it rubs extra. I think it rubs extra salt in the wound when, especially for me, when I look at Liverpool and I look at the fact that they're the club that backed their manager. They had 2 years of rock and roll football that didn't quite come to fruition when Klopp first arrived. They made the sensible decision. They got an astronomical amount of money for a player that wasn't worth an astronomical amount of money because everybody was playing silly buggers at the time. So they decide, you know what, actually, let's sell Coutinho for 135 million and let's make this work. And let's look at really what we need and where we need it. And they backed the manager. They got in Alisson. You know what I mean? They got in Van Dijk. They shored up that defensive unit. And, 2 years later, they're beating us in the Champions League. Meanwhile, we had the manager that, love him or hate him towards the end, whether, he was twerking with one thing or twerking with another. I think as to what Adrian touched on earlier, whether he wanted to buy players or not, I think that gets thrown at him. I think the reason he didn't buy players, I think we touched on it as well earlier, is the fact that I think Levy was coming to him with players and he was saying, that's not good enough. That's not going to make this team any better.
Right.
We had such a good or such a strong 11, 12, 13 that it needed to take something special to progress that team to the next level. And again, whether you love or hate Bruno Fernandes, if we'd have got him when we were linked with him, I think, you look at a sliding doors moment, and what do we get instead? We get Ndombele and we get Gio Lo Celso. And to be fair, I actually kind of rate Gio Lo Celso. I think he was a very good player, is a very good player. Everywhere else he's played well. He was tearing it up in Spain last time I looked with a pretty decent return on goals.
Right.
Messi thinks he's actually pretty good. And I'm sorry, if Messi thinks he's pretty good, then I don't care what you say. He's pretty good. But we'll do a couple of admins and then I'll get your guys' take. Firstly, I want to just give a shout out to everybody in the chat. Again, thank you very much for joining in. Ben Kaufman especially, it looks like he's joined in with the chat. Big up, Ben. Hope you are well. We've got Paul Brown in here. Again, Nita. Who else? We've got Ryan G. Everybody I said hello to earlier. Adrian, I know we've reached the hour mark, hour-ish. Thank you for the 57 people watching and listening. You want to give the channel a little bit of a plug?
Yeah, I want to thank all of you in the chat. I mean, like you say, there's 60 of you viewing us now. You'll be viewing us on XCOM. We've got under my tag name here, you'll see that's who we are on XCOM, still under Spurs Diehards, but it's under my name. We've got 3,200 of you on that. We do run a Facebook channel. I know a lot of people are interested in Facebook. That's fair enough. But for those that you are, we've got like 14,500 on there. There's only about 3,000 are active any month. I always check the activity every 28 days on it. And which still isn't bad, but I understand if they don't want to get involved in social media. I mean, there's lots of reasons why people don't, and we know most of them because it's can be very toxic on Facebook and Twitter. We've got a Facebook page because these videos go out on the page as well. We set the events and the pages go out there live as well. There's only 300 on there, so that's only just been started, so that will take its time to grow. Apart from that, you've got us here. We've got about 1,062, I think, subscribers. It would be great if some of you watching now, if you haven't already subscribe, because it just helps the channel grow. I mean, we're doing fine for 9 months. We're doing fantastic for 9 months, actually. But I get lots of good feedback. I'm sure EMF and Drew and EMF, Tom. Drew and Tom. Yeah, I'm forgetting Tom. Yeah, and Tom Zookeeper. He's I see him at games with his dad, who comes regular as well. Yeah, I'm sure they've had lots of positive feedback as well. We'd like that positive feedback turned into subscribers because that's what helps, We could have monetized ages ago. I mean, like, you only need 4,000 hours. We're approaching 20,000 watch hours. So people do come back and watch the videos, and actually viewers were 50,000 or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
but we don't want to do that until we get enough of you. Although there's 60 of you viewing us now, we'd like more of you in the chat, because obviously, like Jack and the Irish Hotspur and their superb show, and Steve and all that, if you monetize the channel, basically you've got to start doing something for your members. But to do something for the members, our opinion is, well, we need more of you subscribers in the channel. It's what we want. So if you could, it only takes a second to give them a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you like the content, if you don't, that's fair enough. You do your own thing. But like, if you like the content, please subscribe to us, because it will help us enormously, and you will have eternal gratitude. Right? Back to you.
All right, so when I left off, sliding doors, we're terrible. Liverpool are wonderful. They're a well-run club.
Hey,
go on, Steve.
I just wanted to say this because I actually heard from a contact that that said there's a potential that Tottenham could have upwards of $300 million available for the 2025-2026 season. Now, whether that's in the transfer, the summer transfer, or if it's for the year. For the year in general, obviously there's a lot at play too, because player sales can add to that as well too. But one of the things that I wanted to say, and this kind of goes back to what Jack and Adrian were saying, it's like when you look at the club as it is right now, and you look at the fact that Udogie is 22, Van de Ven's 24, Romero's 26, Jed Spence is 22. Kulusevski's 24, Bergvall is 18, Archie Gray is 18, Mikey Moore is 17, Tell is 19, Oda Bear is 19. The only experienced team in this players in this team are Vicario, Madison, and Solanke. The building blocks for a championship-winning team or a multiple cup-winning team are kind of in place as is. Yes, there's still room to add to the to the bottom line of youth, but if this summer window is done right. And from everything that I've read, there's the finances will probably be there. It's at this point, it's about identifying certain players. And I also want to throw this out there, that the time left with Sonny as being a starting player for this Tottenham Hotspur side is a very finite amount of time. It could be at the end of this year. It could be next year before you're getting into the territory of whether or not maybe it's time to move on for some, or maybe move them to a different role, which means you also have the financial responsibility to bring in another face of the franchise type of player of what Sonny was for this club for the last 10 years. If that is something that's very important to this club, that has to be identified. But it's also, pertaining to the forward line, when you have, we also have Yang Min Hunk that's at not Crystal Palace, but Queen's Park Rangers. He's also going to be in training camp. If you have this young core of good wingers, and I think a lot of us feel like these wingers have the potential to be good, you have to put them in an environment where there's no pressure on them to carry the front line, right? That's also I think is a part of the problem, is they're asked to do something where they just don't necessarily have the capabilities in their locker to get that done right now. And there is room for growth in that forward line. I just look at this team as a whole right now, and I see a very talented team that could be an incredibly talented team if the summer window is executed correctly.
Right.
Jack,
I mean, if only we'd had, in the last few years, if only we'd had like a kind of a solid leader, centre forward type player that you could have had around to nurture these. But yeah, I mean, I was just saying. So Jack, having said all of that, I mean, basically the long and the short of it is a bit of a shit show. Spurs future clear as mud. There's very little transparency from the club most of the time. We've got rumours of Scott Munn likely to leave. Or I don't even know if they're rumours. I think it's pretty much fact now. He's likely to leave. Vinny's coming in. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say another reset. We've used the word, but I mean, it is a pretty heavy, I don't necessarily want to say change of direction, but I mean, big up to Sean Butler, because he said this before, that the correction that was made prior or post Conte was always going to be a little bit of an overcorrection, and it would like almost as if it was a pendulum swing. It's almost like they swung it a little too far, and we need for it to come back a little bit. So, I mean, is this? I know. I guess the European League or the Europa League has to play a part, right? Because I for one see two paths, right? There's the path where obviously we win it, and therefore we get the windfall, and therefore we're in the Champions League. And I hate to talk about it, but I'm going to pose the hard questions. Obviously, Postecoglou is likely to have to go. Therefore, we're in the market for a certain type of manager. Whereas, if we don't qualify, we're obviously in the realms for a different kind of manager. And the reason I say that is because I was laughing and joking with Big Dave from the Irish Hotspur. Well, I say laughing and joking. It was a one text back and forth. You know how you overemphasize these things. But I basically said to him, and I think Adrian as well, because it popped up on my feed that we were sniffing around Scotty Parker. And all of a sudden, I'm thinking to myself, well, surely that's not for Champions League Tottenham, because I just honestly don't see Scotty Parker rocking up to the Bernabeu and figuring out handsy flick. So surely the club must have two different visions of what might. Please tell me they've got two ideas of which way to go. Please tell me we're not just again sitting here white knuckling, sitting on the edge of our seat, waiting for them to bumblefuck the rest, the summer. Please, Nita, don't say that.
Send
Jack. Send it.
Sorry, I muted myself there. I think there are two scenarios, and they're kind of both pretty bleak for the most part, because if Spurs don't end up winning the Europa League, I think Daniel Levy will really have to, I know he is blind and deaf to all the criticism and everything, but the noise around Spurs will surely be at close to its ceiling, because every fan will be fed up. It would be another season of no European football, where we did get Europa League this year, but the first time Ange took over, we didn't get European football that year. And it's crazy to see that stadium empty for midweek games, right? It's what Daniel Levy invested in the first place, was to have a huge stadium that he can make a lot of money from playing in big competitions like the Champions League or the Europa League. Even probably the Europa League isn't what he probably wanted to be in, let's say, that often. Right. And so I think there would be a lot of noise around him that he would have to somehow quell with either bringing in a lot of top quality players or just sort of changing his whole ethos. I'm not saying he would, but that's not a good scenario, because it just gets more and more negative, more and more toxic, and we just don't know how it will be fixed. If we do win if we do win the Europa League, just wonder if he's that sort of guy that again just sort of takes his foot off the gas of potentially making again big radical changes, because he's kind of well, we got what we wanted, won the Europa League, now we're back in the Champions League, we're back to normal again, and maybe he would then keep Ange in the job. Maybe he would bring in a manager let's say Thomas Frank, a Marco Silva, these sort of guys who I definitely rate, but I am worried about either scenario. I feel like if you win the Europa League, Daniel Levy takes his foot off the gas because he gets what he wants. He gets all the money that he needs. He gets to be in the big competitions. He's not going to then push the boat out. But let's say if we don't win it, do you really trust him to make radical changes to, what he's been trying to get away with for this long? I don't know. But then if he doesn't, the toxicity around the relationship between the owner and the fans will surely be reaching its peak. So that's my worry, Drew. Is obviously there is no transparency. The future is muddy, but I think either scenario, I just worry for how Daniel Levy even behaves in all of it. What does he actually do? Because he seems like a guy that is banking on winning the Europa League, so that he probably doesn't have to push the boat out on either bringing in a top quality manager or even top quality players, and he can just get away with the same thing that he's been doing for years.
I think that you just hit the nail on the head, and I saw Chang nodding his head there as well. I think Levy. I mean, obviously we are all banking on the Europa League, but I think for two different reasons, right? We all want a trophy. And given that Levy has sat down in interviews and claimed, his biggest triumphs at Tottenham, and one of them, like a glaring miss, was actually the winning of the trophy, was the one thing that he didn't mention. So, Chang, I know we all want a trophy, but Levy is probably, absolutely praying. If we go to what Steve has mentioned with potentially, the money actually being there. I mean, he's praying on winning the Champions League or the Europa League because he doesn't want to have to. Because push has come to shove, he doesn't want to have to spend all of that money. And I think we've gotten to a point where if we don't get there, he's going to have to do big things. Or I think we're all in the understanding or agreement that there's going to be so much noise that he won't be out of the firing line, will he?
I mean, from a fan's perspective, or the way I see it, I think for us, it's just a matter of choosing the lesser of two evils, or picking a path which is I wouldn't say it's the easier path, but the one that doesn't hurt more. And for Levy, the only thing that hurts him more is his finances, his wallet, his bank account, and as much as he would like to write himself yet another substantial bonus come the end of the calendar year for lifting a silverware for the first time in over a dozen years now. For us fans, I think it is more grounded in a sense that we just want some form of success to act as a sort of a stepping stone, a sort of platform for us to then build upon and usher in what we can only hope is supposed to be a new era that comes with this new stadium in Lily White history. And unfortunately, for the last 5-6 years now, it's been since our stadium unveiling league game against Crystal Palace, we've still yet to see anything resembling success, although we could be on the cusp of that come a month's time from now in Bilbao. But I'm not going to be counting my chickens just yet. For me, hand on heart, I would still very much welcome any form of silverware, be it domestic or European, and I wouldn't necessarily look towards keeping Big Ange if we do win the Europa League next month. So I'm still keeping my options open, and I would actually. This is the time where I feel this is a sort of watershed moment, a sort of this point in time of our history where we need to make the tough decisions to not only just balance the books, but to get the club forward again, get us back on the right direction, get us back on track to from the time before Pochettino left. And I mean, tough decisions have to be made, even if it's a painful one. It's sort of like ripping off the band-aid and starting anew. Even though we've just only started with a Big Ange, but I mean, this is a tough decision. Either way you look at it, and for me as a fan, I can't speak on how the owners or the board of directors will feel about it. But as a fan, I want nothing more than success and glory days for us, and that has to start somewhere. Whether it's next month, next season, next year, next decade, hopefully not next century, because we've already gone a quarter. We've already gone. I mean, as hard to believe as it is, as hard to believe as it may be, Mr. Drew, we're already a quarter way into this new century. We're already a quarter way into this new century, and we have still not reached anything resembling a sort of the. I wouldn't call us title contenders, but at least regular silverware winners. So fingers crossed, that we will be able to see the light at the end of this long dark tunnel very soon.
Right.
Whether that's under the current regime, the current owners under Levy, under ENIC, or maybe some Qatari shareholders. I just hope that the future is going to be white and lily white. And yeah, let's just wait and see what this summer holds. And all the very, very best to our scouting department, even if it means having to get rid of Ange in favor of keeping, fingers crossed, keeping Paratici and ushering in probably another golden age of scouting and recruitment. Let's just wait and see how it all turns out. Having said that, back to you, Mr. Drew.
Yeah, fine. Well, yeah, you bring up a good point actually, because it's also gone quiet on the Paratici front, and I'm wondering if that's just because, I don't know, I think change is potentially inevitable, and he's not. I know he was obviously flirting with Milan, that fell through. It doesn't look like you would think somebody of his caliber, or if he was as good as, I don't know, if he was as good as he is, you'd have other teams sniffing around, or he'd be looking at other avenues. So I don't know. I'm wondering if maybe he was talking to Milan to get Levy to kind of go, hang on a minute, I want you over here with me. So maybe they got something going on in the background.
Wasn't Paratici at the stadium for Forest? I thought I read something that Paratici was there.
Not sure.
He's been spotted at recent games. I forget which one.
Yeah. Because I know he was at Wolves, and I know he was there for the home match prior to that as well too.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll move on, because we could talk about the ramifications. We could talk about potential incomings and outcomings just on, honestly, a managing director, manager, the technical director. Even before we even start talking about players, it's kind of ridiculous, because I really thought that we were over and done with this when Conte left. I thought the beginning was when Daniel said we got our Spurs back and did the Coyes Daniel thing, but here we are again. So we'll move on to something hopefully a little bit more optimistic. I want to talk about the Bodo Glimt game, which is obviously next Thursday. Barring any injuries, which, touch wood, aren't going to happen on Sunday, hopefully Sonny will be fit, even if it's just for a second half. I would like to think that we really, really, really have enough for Bodo Glimt at home. I know they are a bit of a force. I know that at home themselves, obviously with the artificial pitch, with where it is, they're far more used to I guess the temperature, or just the atmosphere, the vibe itself. But Adrian, we've got 4 big players in their terms out for them. So you would hope, with it being a home game, now we're getting to the business end of the season, obviously, everyone apart from Sonny and maybe a couple of others with real genuine knocks. I think everyone, we're as fit as we hoped we would be going into this. Can you see anything other than a really convincing home Spurs win?
I can see us beat them 3-4, 5-0. Because I think against Liverpool on Sunday, I think although Son still is resting, I think if you want to be ultra conservative, you rest Tel as well. You rest him as well, just in case if Son will start in this game. And should he not really be back, you need someone who's shown that he's more than capable, which he did recently in Tel. So I think both of them will be options to the right. I think Son will start against this. And on the left, this is why I think against Liverpool, Johnson will probably start and Odegaard will be left, because they're going to be sitting back. And you want your winger that's going to take the players on. And we've seen that Odegaard can do that. That's why I think Johnson will start against Liverpool. And obviously you I think Solanke will play in the middle with Johnson on the with Sonny on the left, and Odegaard or even Tell on the right, But you'll have the option because you keep Odegaard there and you keep Tell on the bench, and see how Sonny goes for an hour. So this home game, I'm expecting us to deal with them in this first leg. And they've got 3 out. The captain's out. The midfield player plays alongside him's out. The other player, Misty, got sent off, did in the previous round. And the winger, the 23-year-old winger, is an injury out. He got taken off after 15 minutes of the last game they played.
Yeah.
So
For those listening, not watching, is Patrick Berg, Hakan Evian, Andreas Helmerson, and Ole Blomberg. Been practicing the old pronunciations. I thought you'd appreciate that, Jack.
Very good.
Elgin, he plays alongside Berg in midfield. So they've lost 2 of their central midfielders straight away.
Yeah.
Helmerson,
very good.
I'm not sure of his position, whether he's a striker. They got a very good record.
I was going to say, that being said, they're no mugs, right? In the last 6 years, they finished second in their league twice. They've been champions 4 times. So they've kind of been there and done it, regardless of how big or small you would consider them to be.
Yeah, since they came up from one of the lower divisions, they've done well, but they didn't go 4 league wins on the spin. There is a break of second and second. I think when they come up, they were second, and they had some wins and a second and some wins. So, and they've done reasonably well in Europe. Well, you'd say fantastically well for a club their size. You'd say fantastically well, but they've done reasonably well, and they've shocked a few teams. And I think when you're at their level and you've got nothing to lose, solid, let's go for it.
Right.
And then
they give me Bronsby vibes from back in the day.
And that AstroTurf, Bronsby, and that AstroTurf. Obviously, I mean, we all know how we struggled at Tamworth in the FA Cup, right, on AstroTurf.
Right.
And yet we have got, for this whole thing, we've got an Astro out of the, I think, 16 pitches at the Spurs training ground. And
we do.
Encased. We do have an AstroTurf pitch there as well.
So, you got to hope they've been putting in some more minutes than they did for the Tamworth game over on that pitch. But we'll just, Jack, I know you're kind of a lover, and actually, well, Steve as well. But we'll obviously ask you, Jack, first, because you're a lover of sort of. I don't want to be offensive because lower league, obviously, they're in the same Europa League as us. But you love a little bit of an out there team from the depths of some dark Lord of the Rings like place, or the deepest, darkest depths of Iceland, or But what are your thoughts? You think we're gonna turn them over in the first leg, or are you a little bit more cautious? What are your thoughts on these guys?
I mean, as a Spurs fan, I just am not under no illusion that we should rock up and think that we could just smack any team. I've seen us lose to Stevenage. I've seen us, Paços de Ferreiras, the classic one, Dinamo Zagreb, with their manager being in prison. So it's just, we've seen it all, really. My thing is with Bodo Glimt is that they've taken so many scalps before that they are a slippery team to overestimate. And then in a lot of cases for their players, you have to think of the motivation that they'll have. Like some of them are playing for potential career changes. Like they could get a good move to another club, in an actual league that would pay them more. It's similar to like what you see in the Euros. Like you'll see guys who play for nothing clubs, absolutely play out of their skin because it's a chance to get noticed. It's a chance to play for something that they can really get up for. In this case for them, like they are, just a step away from being in a final. It's already an incredible feat to get to the semifinal. So I know Spurs will be very, very motivated, but I think Bodo Glimt are probably the most motivated team. Like they're going to be running through 3 walls in this game and also in the second leg. That's the thing that worries me. It's just the effort levels will certainly be there from them. And then will our players be able to respond to that? That being said, there's also what Adrian said, majority of their team, I'm pretty sure the majority of their players, except for one in particular, who was a former, funny enough, Eintracht Frankfurt player, but ended up kind of failing in sort of the Bundesliga. His name is Hauge, Jans Petter Hauge. He was very highly rated, just didn't work out for him. and then got sort of passed around various European clubs and ends up back at Bodo Glimt. But most of their guys like haven't even played like in a Bundesliga or a Liga or a La Liga. Like they don't play against high quality players on a regular basis. And, you know, they've done well in these European games, but I just wonder if, you know, let's say they come up against a Dominic Solanke or even a Richarlison, you know, like guys who, of course, you know, sometimes we slack off, but those guys would absolutely clean up in leagues like that against the players they play against on a regular basis. So if our quality shows, there is an argument to say that we should be able to
because it
beat
wasn't
them
the
3-0, 4-0.
strongest Lazio team, right, Jack?
Well, even Lazio though still made like a comeback, you know, in their own stadium. And Lazio are by no means that they're not a fun team to watch. They're pretty ugly to watch, and they're not that well coached. But I don't know, like I'm getting to a point here. Eintracht Frankfurt, in my opinion, were the team to beat in order for us to get to this final. I know Bodo Glimt are going to be slippery, but I think it was a bigger feat to beat Eintracht. That was the harder fixture. That was the harder test than I think Bodo Glimt will be. I think Bodo Glimt are definitely a dark horse, or definitely a scary team because you don't know a lot about them. But in terms of actual quality, coaching, like I think Eintracht are better. Then that being said, Bodo Glimt's manager is clearly going to be the next Brighton manager in the next 2 years or something like that. That's like that's the classic route.
Yeah,
the
totally.
classic route. But and he's done an amazing job. Like he's pulling off like a football manager sort of style, you know, feat here where it really is incredible what he's doing. But in terms of quality on paper, like surely we should be able to beat them at least 2-0, 3-0. They'll probably score knowing our defense, but I don't know. That's a answer where I never actually made any real points.
That's all good. I like it because you perfectly segued into me asking Steve, how many goals do we need to score on the home leg to be sure of going through and not absolutely shit in the bed, if you'll pardon my language, on the away leg? Because that away leg is pretty brutal. And my understanding is that you fly into Norway and like legit, there's really no other option other than, you know, 3 or 4 helicopters airlifting the entire team, which I don't see happening. I think it's like a 14-hour drive, isn't it, to get to this place? So it's pretty brutal.
I think it's well inside the Arctic Circle.
Yeah, anyone can correct me. I'm going to look it up. You tell me what you think about it.
Yeah, I think you got to fly into Oslo and then take a train all the way up there. I don't, you know, correct me if I'm wrong. I have yet to see the wonders and the beauty of Norway yet. But to answer your question, and by the way, Drew, you're absolutely right. I do have a love affair, a passion, if you will, for lower league football. It is a beautiful game once you get away from the Premier League. But to answer your question, it probably has to be 3 to at least have like a, you know, some semblance of a little bit of comfortability heading to not just North Norway, but northern way the hell up there, northern Norway. The question is can they score 3? Because of our recent run of form, has there been anything to suggest to you that this team is capable of scoring 3 goals? And the problem with Bodo Glimt is that it's a tough ask against them. And what do I mean by that? Because that's a team that is arrogant and in some ways a little cocky because they have a total belief in their ability to win games. They don't necessarily care who's in front of them. They're gonna go out there and make you earn it. They're gonna play hard. They're not a team that has the luxury of world-class talent where they can just rely on one or 2 guys in order to score their goals. That, you know, in order for them to win, it really is a total team effort. And so because of it, they really press teams. And the question is whether or not we're ready to handle a team that is going to approach a match like that. You know, what's funny, Drew, and Jack, maybe you might appreciate this. You know, for like a week, I was trying to put my thumb on it. Like, where have I seen this team before? And I was trying to find a comp because, you know, to me, that's the type, like, I like those type of teams that are arrogant and cocky because they just feel they can compete with anyone regardless of the talent discrepancy. And so I was kind of going back and I was trying to figure it out. And I said, you know what this team reminds me of? And I was talking to my brother about this. And I said, Bodo kind of reminds me of the U.S. men's national team of the early 2000s, where every match that they went into, they understood that they were outgunned. They just, they like talent-wise, they just didn't have it. But they had such a raw belief in their abilities that they play hard every single time they went out. And because of that arrogance, they could beat a Portugal or they could beat Spain when Spain was really Spain. That's the type of team Bodo is a little bit. And so to answer your question, yeah, it's 3. 3 would be ideal, but the question is whether this team is capable of putting 3 against Bodo. Like, would it surprise any of you if it ended up being like a 2-1?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm
wonder
just
what the bookies
looking.
think. This is really one where I wonder what the bookies think.
Right.
They're definitely doing their research.
Think, Bodo does actually have an airport, so I've got a feeling that obviously the players will get to fly into the airport. It's probably very expensive for everyday travelers to fly into the airport because I think it's probably pretty restricted. So I think you'll find that the 15-hour journey that I heard is probably just for the fans, which is just my hat's off to them, because 250, 300 hardcore Tottenham fans going away to the Arctic Circle by hook or by crook. I mean, that takes some. I mean, given the opportunity, I would. I think I saw a couple of screenshots earlier of people trying to get tickets, and one of my friends was in the queue, and I'm pretty sure he was somewhere in the region of about 200,000 in the queue to try and get a ticket, or it might have been 22,000. But either way, I mean, that's some ridiculous queue to be waiting in. So I guess, Mr. Chang, what do you think ultimately the outcome is going to be? Do you think we're going to progress on this home and away leg, and you see us in the final in that lily white shirt?
I really do hope so. I really, really, really do hope so for all our sakes. And it's not even for Angel's sake or for Levy or Enoch or the board of directors. It's for us fans to finally have something to then just shut all our detractors, all our rivals up, and just focus on us being us, rather than Spurs have the last time Spurs won a trophy was closer to the Victorian era. No, not the trophy, the Premiership.
Yeah.
Last time Spurs won the Premiership was closer to the Victorian era than it is to the current era, and so on and so forth. So, for me, I think it's not a matter of when we are going to win. I think we will win a silverware sometime in the next maybe 3-4 years, whether it's under Ange or without him. I think that the sooner we get there, the better. And this is not me being impatient or anything, or even just getting frustrated with our lack of success in cup finals in the past 2 decades. I honestly believe that winning this Europa League would be the much needed sort of stepping stone to sort of recruit better players. We did touch on this a bit earlier with how we should be recruiting, whether it's going to be a lot more of the same when it comes to signing youngsters and potential superstars, rather than going for the tried and proven seniors on the big stage. And for me, winning the European trophy would be akin to maybe giving us that little bit of bargaining power to attract the bigger, better names to sort of bolster the squad and give us something to be proud of when we play that Champions League team on Glory nights at the new stadium. I honestly feel that we need this trophy more than anything. More than change of ownership, more than a change of managerial staff, and even the
do you
medical
think
department.
Chang? Do you think, Chang, it would almost be like a big reset? Do you think that if we won it, that everybody would actually just breathe a big, huge sigh of relief and just consider it a big reset, or do you think there would still be big fractures in the fan base as to which direction we should go in? Because then we almost open up a whole nother can of worms, right? Because
The
you've
trophy's the real
almost
rebuild.
Yeah, exactly.
right.
Secret rebuild is the trophy.
Yeah.
I mean, I did mention earlier that this is the watershed moment for us all. This is a sort of, this point in time, this point in our history anyway, in which we either chart and path and we chart a new course to open waters and possibly to new terrain, new territories, and sort of usher in this what I was always hoping to be a new sort of era of lily white dominance that has been lacking for a good half a century now. And
Yeah.
winning a European trophy. I mean, you have to think back to more than 4 decades ago, the last time we did it on home
84.
soil. And yeah, and for me, the time is now. I mean, what came before us in the past is in the past, and yes, it's good for us to be first ever double winners and domestic champions, champions of Europe domestically and all that. But the time is now, and no better time than the present. We need this trophy. We need something to sort of cling on to give us any sort of lingering hope that there is a future. There is a future, and more importantly, there still is a football club in N17, and not just a tourist attraction and a sort of cash cow for Levy and Inik. So yeah, we need this trophy. We really need it. And if you want me to give a very quick preview for next Thursday night, I would say that if we are to get through, I still feel we need to win this tie next Thursday. Win the tie at home in a week's time, and not to take our foot off the gas, but to just manage the second leg and keep the players fit and firing for a potential European final. Whether that's on a big edge or otherwise, that remains to be seen. But otherwise, yeah, I'm still fairly optimistic. Fingers crossed, this coming Sunday wouldn't put too much of a dent in our aspirations, in our our momentum going into next Thursday night. And yeah, absolutely looking forward. Absolutely looking forward to this semi-final first leg encounter. Having said that, back to you, Mr. Drew.
Thank you, sir. Adrian, while Chang was sitting there talking about not having success and having to think back as far as we do for really any significant trophies, I was sitting there thinking to myself that Man United had their cycle. You had them lot up the road kind of had their little moment. Then you had Chelsea with their moment. Then you had Manchester City, Liverpool, all of those kind of big six or big teams in England over my lifetime have all had their little moment. And honestly, the more I think about it, even just throughout this show and what we've talked about, and just looking back at that sliding doors Liverpool versus Tottenham moment, we've not had our moment in my life. Do you think that winning the Europa League could genuinely be regardless of big? And I ask this because of everything that's going on in the background. Do you think it would be significant enough to get everybody on board, or do you think that the wheels behind the scenes have already started making change, and even if we win it, it's not going to be enough, and we're going to have to go through a new managerial cycle?
It's not going to be enough. On those other teams you mentioned, when people talk about success breeds success, it does if you have the right investment and the right recruitment. I mean, I'm always confident going in the season. You can always win a domestic cup, no matter what team you are, because you only got to win 6 games. You look how well Palace have done in the semi-finals, blah, blah, Villa, right? Have come to the fore, although they've spent a lot of money on that. So they're always achievable. Now the new format of the Europa League's changed. You're playing 8 games minimum before you even get to a knockout round. You could have won a domestic trophy in less games here. But winning I'm confident we're going to win both legs and we're going to win this competition. But what I'd ask Spurs fans to consider, even though I'm a confident fan most of the time, right, is do you think that's going to make us a top 4 side next season? Because that's the next step you aim for, to get Champions League or top 5. Because it looks like we're pretty nailed on for a 5th spot Champions League each season, the way English clubs do.
Because of the coefficient, right?
Yeah, so the coefficient. Yeah. A top 5 side. And then once you get to top 4, we've been in top 4 so many times before, how much harder it is to make that leap to get forward, to challenge for the title. So, yeah, we could improve. Success could be, we could build on the success of Europa League and probably and that could mean we'd win a domestic cup and all that. Would I be 100% confident of us getting top 5 next season on the way we've played this season? And you're looking at, unless Man City or Chelsea get relegated through a points decision, that's another story to talk about, isn't it? Then you've got Liverpool and Arsenal. Then you've got Newcastle, Aston Villa, teams that are up there, and they're going to try and improve as well, and you always get another, you never know what a Brighton's going to do or whatever as well. There's always another one there.
You've got the owners of Brighton and Bournemouth sort of turning around. I mean, if you read other news, sort of saying, "No, we haven't got to sell. We've got no real money issues. Like, we're in the richest league in the world, so they can start sort of punching. They've been very, very savvy with the way that they run their clubs as well.
And if they do what Forest have done, or I left out there, my apologies to any Forest fans listening in, you've got them as well. I mean, do any of you guys see us as being a top 5 team next season? I mean, I don't.
Well, my concern
I could see us winning the FA Cup or the League Cup. I could see us winning the Europa League again.
Depends on the side.
My concern is we squeak through, we win the Europa League, and then Daniel Levy goes, "Oh, well, he can win with this lot, so I'll just give him minimum amount." Do you know what I mean? There won't be. It's almost like he'll get the windfall. He'd get the windfall from the Champions League, and he wouldn't even spend the money from the windfall. I don't know. That's a very cynical view of me, and there's no real evidence that he wouldn't spend the money to stay there. But Jack, what are your thoughts? Like, is this, as I say, we'll ask you the same question. Like, can it be a big enough of a reset button, or is the writing on the wall? Are we going to see changes? And what does that look like to you?
I do think a trophy repairs some of the tense and toxicity, if you want to call it that, around the fan base. I do think it would. Like, I would relax. I've joked that, even my expectations for Spurs would, I don't know, like I would just, every time that we would lose, next season, if after winning a Europa League, I would still just sort of say, well, we're European champions, so who really cares? I'd had a flare up my ass is what I've joked for like an entire season. And I wonder if there would be just in general, just like you said before, Drew, like a big just sigh of relief, maybe from just the general fan base and the pressure, even on Daniel Levy. I wonder, like, if it actually slightly gets lessened, to some extent. Because let's say, like I brought up earlier, let's say he just continues to do the same thing, underspend, try to do Levy-nomics, all that type of stuff. I just wonder if even that would get less attention, just because people would just still be living off the high of winning the Europa League. I do think it is a very, very prestigious competition, and it's not one that you win by luck or anything like that. I think compared to the Conference League, where like you kind of should win it, I think Europa League is a difficult one to win, and it would be incredible for us Spurs fans. And I think it would just relieve a lot of sort of the inner feuds and the just debates and all that sort of stuff over what is the right thing to do, what's the right direction, all that stuff. Not saying we would be headed in the right direction after winning it, but I just wonder if Spurs fans would almost take like a, what do you call it? Like a gap year practically, with the,
there will be, for those who don't know, there will be a tifo at the ground. There will be flags under the whole bottom section as well of the of the South Stand, and there'll also be flags under every seat round the ground for Spurs fans. So I mean, they're actually trying to do something there, but that's down
Danny
to
Levy better milk
and the
it if we
teeth in
do.
flag people. So and about time they looked and see what Newcastle do at their stadium when we was up there playing. Flags all around the ground. I worried you might blank out the advertisers or the advertising ribbons or some shit like that. You know what I mean? And you're trying to create an atmosphere in a stadium, you know, rather than a sanitized version of an operating theatre.
Right. I'll see. Steve, we'll come over to you and sort of same question, whether the cup's enough of a sort of a restart for you, and also I'll add as well, being as we've been talking about Postecoglou, has he shown you enough with what he's been able to work with to tell you or to show you that if we did go on and win it, that he would be able to progress the team in a manner that would appease more of the fans than just winning it? Because I think what will be thrown at him if we do win it is that the team has pulled it out of their arse and won it in spite of him and not because of him.
Yeah, I don't necessarily buy that, but because each part of the team functions together to actually get those results. But that being said, I do believe a trophy could potentially be a jumping off point for this club. Now, in the context, in the context of what this is supposed to be a rebuild, and we're coming to the end of the second year. And in the second year, the way that
let me ask you quickly.
Yeah.
What was how many years was your rebuild? How many years is the rebuild?
Three.
Three.
It takes really like 3 to really get yourself in a position where you can start challenging leagues, challenging for the league, challenging for the for cups in that matter. But in the second year, your league, your team is built to to actually be competitive in the cup divisions, because as Adrian said, it's 6 wins, 6 wins to raise a trophy. Whereas obviously the Premier League is 38 deep, and when you look at the context of the season, we got to within 90 minutes of Wembley in the League Cup, and here we are in a semifinal of a European Cup. And in some context, you might say, considering everything that's happened this year, maybe Spurs have overachieved a little bit. That being said, though, imagine winning it. Imagine winning the Europa League and bringing back Ange for a third season. Imagine the pressure Daniel Levy would be in by making that decision. Well, trying to rest on his laurels because now you have Champions League money and you're not necessarily going to continue to back the manager. Imagine that type of pressure heading into a pivotal year coming off of Europa League.
Do you not think we've gone so far, or do you not think Postecoglou's fallen so far out of favour that if he did make the decision, they'd be like, "Oh, thank God."
The problem that I have is that I respect Postecoglou too much, right? Because I know he's capable as a coach, and I've seen his championship sides play unbelievably incredible football, and I still, in some context, think that it could happen here. But that being said, when you actually do something in the context of what happened in the season with everything that's transpired, and then you turn around and win Europa League, I think that kind of erases everything that's happened in the season. Now, the question is that situation between Postecoglou and these players untenable to this point? I don't know, because on one hand we see it, we see performances where they let you know that they're capable of moving in one direction together as a team. They're capable of doing that, and then we see other matches where you start to wonder. So to me, it's like the way that I look at the Postecoglou era at Tottenham Hotspur is, to me, it's a little incomplete, because we saw what happened in the second half of last season, and they still managed to pull off a fifth. And then this season, it's been an absolute train wreck in the league, but yet they got to within 90 minutes of Wembley in one cup, and now they get to another, and now they're 180 minutes away from Bilbao.
Steve, good point you make there. I mean, I just want to add to that because the media would have it believe that Ange's a dead man walking and he's gone, right? But if he wins the Europa League, which I think he would do, and they say, oh, he's gone and you sack him. Yeah, I mean, if you're the board, you've got to think of all these permutations, haven't you? Because if you sack Ange and bring someone in, whether it's Glasner, Frank, Arena, whatever it is, I would like Xavi if it was me. But I mean, if you bring one of them in and they don't win nothing next year and you've sacked Ange, right? The fan base is going, you've sacked the only manager that's won a trophy in X amount.
And how do you?
And now you brought this guy in, and we go off again, don't we?
How do you sack a dude that's just won your first European trophy since 1984? How do you do that? Like, how do you save face by making that decision? I understand that Ange Postecoglou is a lightning rod to a lot of Spurs fans, but at the end of the day, isn't winning trophies the whole point of this? And if he delivers one, you don't think that he wants to stick around for the Champions League?
I think even
no, fair play.
The right man to take us forward. I'll go back to you, Drew, in a minute. Whether you think he's the right
man.
I
just wanted, sorry, Adrian, I just wanted to cut across you for a sec because Mr. Chang has actually got to leave us in a couple of minutes. So I actually just wanted to, I just wanted to actually give him a last couple of, couple of moments to reflect on the weekend and tomorrow just before he has to go.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Drew. I would just like to add on a little bit to what Mr. Steve was speaking earlier with regards to how we should handle winning the Europa League and the permutations it then brings up in terms of Ange's future. And this is also a bit to do with what Mr. Stroker mentioned earlier, and the managers that we're linked with or, have an eye on to replace Big Ange. For me, Europa success or even any sort of silverware success would at the very least guarantee any manager, whether it's Ange or Scott Parker or Xavi, any one of these managers that are still at the helm, if you do win a trophy, I honestly feel that you should be given at least to the end of the calendar year or at least another season to see if you can elevate that one silverware you've won. Because if we do, and this is a bit, then this is a very big likelihood. If we do win Europa, but we still part ways with Ange before the new season, what kind of impression would that leave on potential new managers? What kind of a precedence are we setting? What kind of
very good point. Very good point.
Good point.
So yeah, if I were Zidane, or even Pochettino for that matter, if I'm Pochettino and I'm thinking to myself, hang on, I got Spurs to a Champions League final, and yet I wasn't even given to the end of the calendar year to see if I could turn things around. Why is Big Ange now getting a sort of double standard treatment in which he wins the Europa League, but then he is still shown the exit? So that in itself would leave a very, a bad impression on any new manager who wants to take the reins. And that is just the manager. Can you imagine the players? If it was the players, they are thinking to themselves, hang on, this manager just won himself a trophy, but he's no longer going to be, at the helm. So that is what I will leave on. Thank you so very, very much for having me on for the past 2 hours. It's been a good way for me to kickstart this Saturday morning here in Southeast Asia. For those of you watching over in the UK, I think it's midnight It's midnight now over there. So a very good Saturday morning to you as well, and to the rest of the world. If you are in Europe or like Steve is and Drew is over in America, have yourself a fantastic. A fantastic start to the weekend. And Mr. Kinnicky, what can I say? Big fan of you and Mr. Harris over in the Irish Hotspur. I am so glad we managed to share a screen for the first time in the remaining few weeks of this final of this season. I really do hope to be back on again here on Spurs Diehards sometime maybe in the next week or so. If permitted, Mr. Drew and Mr. Stroker, to maybe give my thoughts on the first leg of the Europa League. And having said that, Chang, over and out from Southeast Asia. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone, and come on, you
Thanks,
Spurs.
Chang. Come on, you
Thanks,
Spurs.
Chang.
Thank you,
Great
Chang.
job.
Thank you,
Come
Chang.
on,
Great points.
All right, Adrian, we will come over to you.
Cool.
I guess we'll just get your last thoughts on it. I mean, I think Chang makes a really, really good point.
Yeah,
What are we telling? Well, I guess we'll go around everybody. Well, I mean, he makes a really, really good point. What are we saying to the rest of the footballing world? That you've gone so long without a trophy, then you finally do. And literally, I mean, the one way of looking at it is that everything has been stacked against you this season. Everything that could have gone wrong, should have got, everything could have, did. Yeah, just all of it. And in spite of everything, and I guess, we are still being premature. We've got 3 games to go, including the final, because I'm sitting here going, oh, well, if we get to the final, it's just assumed we're going to win that. And let's face it, if it's Bilbao, that's going to be a really, really tough game. So getting to the final wouldn't be enough, would it? It's got to be the win, right? It's got to be the win.
No, we've got a good record in this competition. It's a different name now. We've won it twice, right? So I think we lost one final and 2 legs to final as well. Right. We won 3 European trophies. I mean, no, we've got to win it. And that would give everyone a good boost. But, you shouldn't, like with Jack and you lot have all alluded to earlier, that shouldn't start us fans getting a bit delusional. We've won a trophy. It's like when some teams win a trophy. Oh, yeah, next year we're going to win. We're going to win everything. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. You still have to look at where we are as a squad. And none of us can even, none of us are even confident of saying we'd be a top 5 team with the players we've got. And we just don't know because there's no transparency. If we knew, right, for example, that this club had carried on its tradition, that we knew its DNA, the football we played, the attractive attacking style of football's played from the lowest levels of the academy, the 9-year-olds upwards, and the managers we brought in were brought in because they played that style, not like Levy Lyon, because you don't bring a Mourinho in or a Conte in if you're going to play the Spurs way. You just don't do that, right? It's not our DNA. It never has been, since I've been supporting this club for over 6 decades. So if you knew that, then now, and we had a shit season and we were in now, we would know what direction we would go and we would know how the club were playing and we'd know the direction of travel, right? But we don't. And as if we're waiting to win or lose this trophy till we get a clue to what the direction of travel is. And we still won't know. And this is what's so poor about it. I don't expect to know the ins and outs of transfer deals and deals and all that and everything else. But you, as a fan, when you follow a club and the club's got traditions, you'll expect, right, okay, things aren't well, but we know they'll be looking to put it right. We've got confidence, there's a word for you. We've got confidence they will sort it. But we haven't. This is the whole thing. We haven't. Because there's no transparency, there is no direction of travel. It's a bit like being the ball in a pinball machine, just bouncing about from one to another. And Levy's done it with his managers. Oh, yeah, we've got our Tottenham back. Well, look, the poison dwarf needs to surround himself with people that are more knowledgeable at football, because he hasn't got it right. And anybody in his position that was employed by a company would have been sacked years ago for 1 trophy and 14 managers. There's going to be 15 managers in, 20 odd years, but it doesn't mean to say I'm not confident because this squad has improved. Their recruitment's been a lot better. You look at all the young players that Steve mentioned earlier. You can, if you go for all them, we have brought in better players. We have shifted loads of players, but it showed how much needed, how much rot needed to be cut out of this club. And we still need to improve on the recruitment. There isn't so much rot to go now, right? But there are upgrades. We need serious upgrades, especially in the forward line. You had a world-class striker, suddenly you start believing. If you need a forward that can carry you as well, or a world-class midfielder that can carry you through games. Whether it's a ball-carrying Gascoigne type even the likes of the Musa and Dembele would give you confidence, you know.
Or even the Berryvale 3 years from now, right? when he's a real baller
It's
instead
the
of just the
waiting game.
baller that he is
Unfortunately,
now.
I've seen us win loads of trophies, experience win loads of trophies, right? But it's the wait and the wait and the wait. And all right, I'm not against the youth policy, but even now, when we get, even with all the BS you see in low tier media on News Now and all that, and I follow all the Tottenham feeds, I'm sure Jack does and Steve does and you do as well. And you know that most of that is bullshit, you know. If they link us with a goalkeeper, we got more goalkeepers than we need.
We know what to do with, yeah.
We know what to do with, right? We know we need a fullback. We know we need a midfielder. If they get that Huyson, good player. There's some good players we've been linked with. But there's other players we know that they're out.
Most of it is low hanging fruit, right? I mean, I know Jack's been harping on all season about ITKs and like the amount of times people have got things wrong and have just been nowhere near the mark with stuff, right, Jack? I mean, it's been pretty. I mean, it's been so bad that I'm beginning to think that between all the people we know in the YouTube world, we could probably come up with better analysis and better inside scoops than most of these guys are, right?
Well, I think the best example is also like you have to sometimes think about it. Like they are there for clicks as well. Like these journalists and whatnot, they need to get a certain amount of clicks every month. They need to get a certain amount of people visiting the website or visiting the articles, that sort of thing. And like I think the best example of it was when we didn't even play the Eintracht Frankfurt first leg yet, and the entire time over international break. It was like Ange to be replaced by Iraola, Ange to be replaced by Marco Silva, and like all these things. It's like you guys are writing articles that aren't even going to be relevant until after the season, concludes basically. Or I guess if he gets knocked out by Eintracht Frankfurt, but they didn't even give him the first leg yet, which I just thought was a huge sign of the fact that they do just work off of whatever sort of clicks that they can get. If there's a player that maybe they've heard some sort of sniff about, they're going to make it sound like Spurs are interested when they're probably not, and they've not have no real evidence to work off of. But seriously, the best example was like Ange didn't even kick, or the team didn't even kick a ball yet against Frankfurt in the first leg, and they were talking about replacing him. It's like you guys are 4 months too early, basically.
The things that get my ears attention on transfers, probably some of you guys as well, I'm not trying to teach anyone to suck eggs or anyone who's viewing us or listening to us, is when I go to the media and they go, and I don't like all this like, so-and-so Fabrizio Romero is a transfer expert. No, he isn't. He only says something when it's a fact and it's been released in a proper detail, a fact, which is what I like to deal with. And as you guys know, I just want to post all these banners up and stuff. It's like it's actually something you can work on. For me, when something gains gravitas is when we get the agent speaking with the player, right? The club are speaking with their club. The player has spoken with his agent, with us. He's keen to go. Things like that. All right, some of that can still be BS. But there is something happening with like what a lot of Jack's alluded to. It's just pie in the sky, just nothing. It's got no gravitas to it. There's nothing, no substance at all.
Well, and Jack as well, you bring up, you reeled off a couple of names there that is kind of low-hanging fruit from a journalistic point of view, right? We've been linked with Iraola for months. We've been linked with Frank for seasons. We've been linked with these managers. Let me ask you this, right? If we go on and win it, let's say Postecoglou, I don't think he's going to get sacked, and I don't think he'd walk away because I think he's got too, if it was me, I'd want to, number one, prove some people wrong. Number two, I don't want to give up being in the Champions League. But let's just the inevitable happens, right? We end up qualifying for the Champions League. We give the beginning of next season a try. Let's say they fuck the transfer market again. We don't get off to a particularly good start. Or, even to be even more basic than that, we run the risk of walking into a Ten Hag scenario where potentially the writing is already on the wall. Everybody knows it. Everybody's too scared to do anything about it. So they give it another try, knowing that it's probably not going to work anyway, because nobody had the balls to just fucking take it for what it was and just say goodnight. So now we're in a situation where we need another manager, but we're in the Champions League and we've made some moves in the transfer market that may or may not have been good enough. So at that point, who do you go for? Because I don't believe in that position any of the managers that we've discussed or that you've mentioned are actually good enough to then take over at that point. And that may be doing them a disservice. But I think if we are lucky enough to get to that situation where we are in the Champions League and have maybe invested in a couple of really good quality players, I think that then is the time to kick on. And if they mess that up, then, you know, and I hate to talk about things like people have already lost their jobs, and I've already said that on record. But, you know, people like to kind of discuss and have opinions, and chat likes it, YouTube likes it, the algorithm likes it. So forgive me, I don't want to offend anybody if they really are truly still in love with Ange. But yeah, that's I want to caveat with that. But yeah, let's have the conversation.
I just don't know. I don't know if this answers what you were trying to say, but I mean, I wouldn't put it past Levy to do something that's not too dissimilar to what he did to Pochettino. Like Pochettino got us to a Champions League final, but the regulars, you know, the Premier League season wasn't that great, right? And the fact that he sacked him so soon into the Premier League the following season, you could see something similar happening to Ange, where let's say Ange wins the Europa League, Levy gives him a chance to do better in the Premier League the following season. He sees enough games where things, let's just say things still aren't looking great, you know, in terms of the Premier League season, and then he just sacks him because of it, and then just starts over with someone else. I think the issue with that is that a lot of the guys you're probably looking at, the Franks, the Silvas, the Raiolas, they would still be in a job with another Premier League team. There's no way you're getting them to leave 10 games in, but he did sack Poch, like, after getting us to the Champions League final. Like, I wouldn't put it past Levy to do something similar where he gives Ange a benefit of the doubt, not even benefit of the doubt, just allows him to just try again. And then,
but you think the window of opportunity, or not the window of opportunity, that's really the wrong phrase, but if he is given time, I don't expect it to be a lot of time, right? Because the memory banks are, you know, people don't really remember history too much or too well anymore. And like, Steve, let me put this to you. Like, even if we do, you know, if all goes well, we do win, but then we get off to a kind of a slow start and it doesn't all go to plan. Like, people are, my opinion or my feeling is that people are going to kind of forget that trophy really quick. I don't want it to be that way, but I feel like it might be. Or am I being extra cynical tonight?
No, I mean, be cynical all you want, because it's true, right? Because the narratives have already been written, right? Yeah. So if next year starts and Ange Postecoglou is in charge, the same BS narratives of the he's out of his depth, or his high line is made of rubbish, whatever the case may be, whatever on a week-to-week basis Spurs fans like to use. Those will still be there next season, because again, trophy or not, I think there is now a love and hating Ange Postecoglou, which I don't know, man. It seems kind of weird, considering that dude's a proven winner. But to what Jack alluded to, right? It wouldn't surprise me if that happened, because we had seen that with Poch. I mean, you fired Marino right before a final. He has done some pretty questionable moves up to this point to begin with. But me personally, I also think it also fits with a timeline Daniel Levy is looking at, because after 2020, the 2025-2026 season, there are going to be attractive names available, more attractive names available that potentially fit Spurs a little bit better than the Andoni Iriolas and the Thomas Franks. Now, the only reason Thomas Frank is even being mentioned is because the connection with Johan Lang, right? I mean, Frank is a Danish brother from another mother. That type of, there's that connection. But you also have to understand that, and I actually believe this to be true, because the two have been talking for 3 months now. Daniel Levy and Mauricio Pochettino have been talking for 3 months. There is mutual interest. in bringing Pochettino back to the club. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about that. The biggest problem, the biggest hurdle is the fact that he's got a contract with the U.S. men's national team that runs through the World Cup.
Right.
And there's a release clause of nearly $20 million in order to get him to come back to Spurs. So if they want him, they would have to pay a pretty penny. But that means
and
he's
Pochettino really runs the risk of burning I don't know if it's necessarily burning a significant bridge, with all due respect to the US men's national team, but it's a national team bridge nonetheless, right? It's pretty big. Right.
But it's
and
also
it doesn't give off good vibes, does it?
It'd be wise to wait a year if he knows that we're going to get him back.
Right.
It'd be wise to wait and see what we're doing a transfer window and whatever before he went.
But it's an international bridge, right? So eventually your club career is probably going to wind down, and you want to leave certain doors open if you want to continue coaching, which is on the international level as well, too. So me personally, I don't necessarily think it's a wise move at this point. But also, I don't know how you guys feel about the rumor names. I don't find any of them actually a good fit.
Appealing.
Yeah,
right.
Well, it's not necessarily appealing, but I mean, just a good fit for the players that we have right now, and then also the direction of whether our transfer strategy is currently and how that's going to manifest itself in the summer transfer window. I just don't think there's going to be a coach that is going to be able to necessarily do better than Ange Postecoglou. I mean, I understand the league form. By the way, I understand the league form. Right. But that being said, he brings a European trophy to Spurs. You know, the next coach has to win the FA Cup or win a domestic cup double. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Guys, I've got a question. Go on, Drew. I've
been salty about Iraola, and the reason I've been salty about it is because when the rumors started going around about him potentially, I mean, I'm so invested in wanting this to work, and it's not about Angie in, Angie out. I've been on record of saying I don't own a pitchfork. Like I want the team to be successful. I want the club to be successful. I want things to work. If they don't work, they don't work. Then at that point, I want my club to act in a swift manner. Not, I'm basically describing not my club, but this is how in my head I would like it to work. So I don't want to just be changing managers for the sake of it. That being said, now that we're getting to this point where I've just not seen enough in the last 6 to 8 weeks, which is when I was really banking on the players having come back from all their injuries, the team really start to kind of gel. And maybe I'm not being fair. I listened to the Forest game. I didn't get a chance to watch it. I heard there were points where we were good. I heard the second half was a lot better. But the fact of the matter is, we were 20 minutes into a game and 2-0 down again. Or, we were 20 minutes into a game and a goal down again. And that just hasn't been fixed. And I don't know if it's a combination of Angie's way of wanting to play is so on the edge that if it does fall apart, it absolutely falls apart. But then the flip side of that is we're not clinical enough going forward for him to really seem like we're able to recoup when we go down. So therefore, is it a case of needing to buy exponentially better players for then the system to work? Is the system just doomed to fail at this level? Like, there are just so many if, buts, and maybes. But the more, just going back to my initial point, I'm coming round to the idea of somebody like Iraola, because if the worst happens and we do call it, then I think there's evidence this year to show that he could make it work in a Tottenham team that doesn't qualify for the Champions League. I still think there are these two pathways, and I still think that I think there's potentially a slight maneuvering of the ship, and then there's another reset. The slight maneuvering is qualification, hoping it works, but probably being a dumb fool if I'm reading the chat right. Big up chat, by the way, and really appreciate you being here again and contributing as well and having the conversation along with us. Like, I just, I fear that we're going to do the Ten Hag thing and there's just not enough there and it's all going to fall apart again anyway. At which point, I think there's certain class of manager has to come in to steer the ship again. Whereas if it all falls apart, we don't get through, we're back to 41 games and a couple of domestic cups. Like, I can see that being a reason why the names like Scott Parker are being bandied about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess, I mean, anyone got any thoughts on that? I mean, Jack, I'm sorry, I've kind of feel like I've been talking for too long. I mean, have you got any opinions? I mean, is that right, dude? Are there two avenues? Are there two pathways?
I'm not really even the biggest fan of Uraiola. I really respect what he's done, but I wouldn't say I think he's punched well above his weight with Bournemouth, but at the same time, I think people really underrate how good his squad is. I think he does have a lot of good players in that team that he's, of course, made to look good. But Kirkesh is a top-level fullback who's being now linked with Real Madrid. The likes of Dean Huijsen, even before he went to Bournemouth, was at Roma. He did incredible at Roma, Juventus Academy prospect. You have Zabarny, who's played for the Ukrainian national team since 18 years of age. He's a top-level center back. We were linked with him at one point when he was very, very young. Then you go to their midfield. Tyler Adams is well rated. I like Tyler Adams. I like a lot of their team. I like even their forward line. I would take over our forward line. When you actually go just man for man,
100%.
I think they have a better forward line than we do. So Iraola, he's done great, but I don't know. I think he's sometimes been a tad bit overrated. The depressing thought with Spurs, I think, is all the time we're talking about with these managers that they're not given the tools that they need in order to succeed. They're not given the exact set of players that they need in order for their system to work. If that's going to always be the case, if that's going to be a permanent thing with Spurs and Daniel Levy, and he's always just going to handicap or just sort of handcuff his managers, then I do feel like you need to go after someone who has a proven track record of doing the best with what's available to them, whether it's shit, whether it's good, they can still form a good team out of it. And strangely enough, I actually think the one that we've been linked with that has shown that is Marco Silva. He doesn't have that pleasurable of a play style. It's not really that pretty to watch, but that dude has gotten it done with various squads that are, in my opinion, quite bad. And I would say his Fulham team, in fact, the fact that his Fulham team, I think, are only a point or two off of Bournemouth. Fulham's team, are a bunch of Premier League rejects, guys that nobody would want. And very few players of that team I would actually even take a Tottenham Hotspur, apart from maybe Anthony Robinson. I'd say that he's the guy that you go for if we're going to be in this permanent cycle of managers not being properly backed, that sort of thing, because he's clearly proven that he can get the job done with bang average guys and punch above his weight. When he first came to the Premier League with Fulham, he did what Scott Parker couldn't do. He actually took over that team and then was able to get them to survive, which is a huge feat. And then he also as well got them to get close to Europa League football. He might even do it again with that team. He had Tim Ream in the team. He has the likes of what was his face? Just a bunch of Harrison Reed, guys like that in his squad, and he was getting the job done. So I'd say Marco Silva is probably the one that I think who's done the best. Considering the list.
He's unlocked Raul Jimenez this year too.
I was impressed with Ten Hag.
He's made Raul Jimenez look good again.
Yeah. It's
I was impressed with Ten Hag's Ajax team that come to the Spurs Stadium and led 1-0 before we had that fantastic replay and 1-3-2 in Ajax. I thought he built a very attacking football inside that played fantastic football. They went away, they won at Real Madrid and places like that, and then they went out to us. It was one of them teams that you thought, well, it's a shame you wanted your team to go through. That was the same thing. The other name who's come up recently, Jack or Steve, if you know the guys like Niko Kovac, He's manager of Borussia Dortmund at the moment, and he was manager of a very excited Bayern Munich side that come to the Spurs Stadium under Poch in 2018, I think. And we lost that game 7-2. Sadly, I was at that game, right? But, you know, you had Coman on one wing and, like, they had the two wingers and all that, and they just ripped us to pieces. Aurier was running around like a headless chicken, right? You know, typical Aurier. Couldn't stay, no discipline, right? And, like, he's Croatian, that manager, and I thought, well, I'd like to know a bit. Do you guys know much about him, Kovac?
I think he's a bit of a journeyman at this point in terms of the Bundesliga. He's been passed around a lot of clubs and has unfortunately failed at them. I think he was even at one point he did very well with Eintracht Frankfurt, then went to Bayern, sort of failed at Bayern at the end of the day. He did fail there. Then he got passed around to, I think, like Wolfsburg and then another club. Didn't do too hot with them. So I'd say he's kind of a little bit cooked as a manager, to be honest. I think we have to look at someone who either can do what Ange was supposed to do, which is deliver exciting, impressive, fun football that a lot of Spurs fans demanded when we had Conte and Jose. And then we have to back them with the proper players for them to succeed with that. Or we bring in a manager, like I was suggesting with Marco Silva, that might not have the most impressive of play styles, but has proven that he can get wins and get points on the board, regardless of who he has available to him. It's one or the other for me.
Just quickly read out this message from Kers, because she says, my daughter's only 7. We've had 5 managers in her lifetime, soon to be 6. It's just wild. Do you know what I mean? And then Daniel Knight says, it's the Tottenham way. Big up, Daniel.
Well, my concern is that we bring a manager in that won't create a pathway for our youngsters. We've got such a good crop now. They're not all going to make it, obviously. But
and then Dan Davenport here mentions as well, like Glasner's another one as well.
That worries me. Most managers just want to save their ass, basically, when they play football.
Well, if this is the path that we're sticking to, which is more or less developing the next crop of youngsters over the course of the next couple more windows, then I think it would probably benefit Tottenham to hire a coach that actually has developing high-level youth at the Premier League level or at a high level around the world, but also knows how to get the very best, almost getting youngsters to play above their talent level, to stay within the top 10 of the Premier League. My issue with Scotty Parker was that, now correct me if I'm wrong, I think he got relegated with a decent Fulham side. And then
Bournemouth.
And then I think when he came up with Bournemouth,
and didn't do very well in
he failed.
Belgium
this is the massive test. He came up with Fulham, failed with Fulham, came up with Bournemouth, failed with Bournemouth, and he's
and then he
mouthed off.
And then he went off. I think
don't do that. I think he mouthed.
I think he resurfaced with Club Brugge, and he ended up getting sacked with that one. And it really his success has come at the championship level.
Right.
And is a dude like that ready to step into a Tottenham Hotspur?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Well,
I hope it's a bogus rumor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think no. And again, this is my, I'm not trying to be rude to the guy, but like on both counts, no. Like I don't see him. He's not coming in immediately and completely revolutionizing the way we play. And I also don't think he's coming in and having a style that will nurture the youngsters so that we're a force to be reckoned with in 3 or 4 years' time. I just don't see either of those things pan out. Like I'm a fan of Marvel and multiverses, but I just don't see him. I don't see a universe where Scotty Parker is the be all and end all. You know what I mean?
I don't think he's too dissimilar to Daniel Farke.
Any of these guys are like, people say there's a dearth of centre forwards. Like it's not like it used to be. And I feel like it's kind of getting that way with managers. Like there's not really a huge amount of insane quality, but maybe that's just because it's more about, I don't know, is it more about the amount of money that you throw at something? And at some point, I mean, you've always got like these 1 or 2 standouts that are always going to be better than maybe everybody else. But then it's kind of, you throw money and whatever sticks to something for a certain period of time and just gets you somewhere is kind of good enough until that stops working and you just have to do a little reset. Like, is this just a perpetual cycle?
Well,
is this just
Right, and
Adrian,
that's-
go on.
Well, no, McKenna did a good job at Ipswich to get them up, and he knows youth players. He's also ex-Spurs anyway.
Yeah.
And also,
But he's a Man
Well,
United, so like everyone, like
Yeah.
that's the one thing. Everyone goes, "Oh, McKenna, he ex
No.
Tottenham." He's
Yeah,
actually a Man United supporter, and he left us to go there.
yeah. Well, hold on, and the same with before Matty Wells was given head coach over Ryan Mason.
Yeah.
Our coach went to Birmingham, and now he's got them promoted. So
Yeah.
he knows young players, and he would know players at the club as well. So I forget his name. Is it Curtis or Chris? What's his name?
It's Chris, isn't it?
Chris Davis at Birmingham City.
Chris Davis.
Chris
Yeah?
Davis, yeah. Would that just happen to coincide? Does his departure just happen to coincide with us becoming really shit as opposed to just being poor?
Well, you're going to put it down to one man. I think you could look at the science team, the whole coaching staff. You know, if Ange goes, shouldn't the whole lot go as well? Shouldn't a lot of them go? You know.
Yeah.
Hansi
What I
Flick
wanna
was
ask you
the
guys,
secret mastermind behind Joachim Löw. You know,
It'll
he loved
probably mean
Joachim
me
Löw,
having
and
to
then
change
Germany
some of
started
these
not
Right.
playing
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
This Palace game here and the Villa game, can you remind me of the FA Cup final and the final against in Bilbao as well? What dates are they again?
Bilbao's on the 21st.
That's what I thought. When's the cup final? Because we know that our last league game's after the cup final, so the cup final's got to be before the 20. I wonder if these fixtures are going to be rearranged, or we might get time off before we play in Bilbao. That's what I'm thinking. If there's a cup final, anyone in the chat?
I think
got
it's
the-
mid-May. I think it's mid-May. I think
What's
it's
it? I
not
need
even
to
that
go-
late
I
into
need
May
to go,
or something.
because
I think it's a little bit sooner.
Both of these are in the semi-final anyway, aren't they? Palace and Villa.
I do have to crash out though soon, boys.
Yeah, we've been going for 2.5 hours,
Appreciate
so we
your
are probably going to
explanations,
wrap it
yeah.
up here very soon.
Anyone in the chat got the FA Cup final date on them just at the moment?
So just quickly.
Yeah, we're nearly done anyway.
Yeah, but this conversation is the reason why I lean towards more
May
towards
17th.
May 17th.
So we're not playing Villa on the 18th then, are we? Right? So that fixture's changed. They may well be in the final, right? And if the final in Bilbao is 4 days later, we might find ourselves with a week or longer off before this game.
So then they used to have it at the end of the season. Is that not a thing anymore?
Not this season, it isn't, because we got
Wow.
Brighton at home on the 28th. So if we're playing on the 21st, we get a week after. We'll probably play the postponed Villa game after the final then.
Yeah.
And depending if they're in the final, so that could work in our favour. That'd be a change if the footballing gods smile on us for a change.
Right.
We'll
see what, because obviously
find
just
out.
conscious of wanting to get Jack off to enjoy the rest of his day. I'm just going to put up. Let me just grab a banner here quickly. Jack, what have you got going on for the rest of this weekend, my friend?
Gonna go enjoy the weather, or what's left of it. And we had a nice week in Seattle. It's been lovely. And
Miss it.
yeah. The only thing I would say is just I'm now trying my best and figuring out this whole social media, vertical video clipping stuff. So follow us on the other weird socials, the TikToks, the Twitters, the Instagrams of the world, because I'm trying my best and figuring it out for the first time. So
Sweet.
I was hoping my younger
check out
admins
various
like
clips of Dave
Drew
ranting
and
next week.
Ian and Tom would be doing that for me, because I'm busy just doing what I'm doing at the moment. I need to get a new intro done. Don't know how to do that, because the other one was infringing copyright, I think, so I had to take it down, which I don't mind doing that.
Well, I'm
But
sure.
yeah,
I think
pleasure,
I'll
guys.
be. Yeah, absolutely. I'll be doing a pre-game probably with Dave on Sunday, and then I know obviously you'll be doing the watch along with him. I'm sure. Hopefully he'll be around for that, and he'll be
Yeah, I
better.
should.
And I think I'll be around tomorrow. So if you need a hand with anything, then feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Thank you, Drew.
All right, buddy.
Appreciate
No
you
problem.
guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All right.
we've got Ian will be
Take
doing
care.
he's got the joy and the thrill of doing the post-match Liverpool game Sunday.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So I'll be on with him, whatever happens. But we want to thank all of you. There's still 62 of you viewing us and listening to us now, which is fantastic. Like I said earlier, if you could look at the banner below, smash the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. That helps the algorithm, helps the channel grow. We will continue to put content out for you every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. Barring an international break or something, we are not going to put a show on just to waffle. We like to bring you facts, and we pride ourselves in being a mature and sensible Spurs group. But we can get prickly at times, especially when the next Spurs PR blunder rears its ugly head. We will be there to hammer it home.
What was the?
I just wanted to give a quick shout to Mr. Lord Rodney Trotter, who has joined in with the chat there. Said and just completely fucked this season in more ways than one, and then managed a couple other things. So big up, Lord Rodney. It's clear where you stand, and obviously you are more than welcome to stand there. Completely see where you're coming from. And then Daniel 90 again saying, yeah, the whole coaching team is useless. And I do, as I say, I'm not trying to. I hate being nasty. I wouldn't like anyone to tell me I can't do my job, but I think there's some genuine issues there. I think if you look previously, you've had managers that have come in with a coaching staff. Even Pochettino had his 2 or 3 guys that are the nucleus that he's still got on there now. And I just think there's something to be said. It does feel a little bit Frankenstein.
Well,
is that fair? Is that fair or no?
Didn't Postecoglou, his main lieutenant, his main assistant, didn't he take off for the Hibs job and failed at it? I think I read that somewhere where after Postecoglou left Celtic for Spurs, his main assistant stayed behind in Scotland and tried to coach Hibs, and it didn't work out. And I thought he returned back to Postecoglou's staff.
I'll tell you one thing we didn't talk about, but it's one thing that's stuck in my.
Hang on, Adrian. Let Steve finish his point about the staff.
But and that's the thing. It's like when we're talking about coaching fit, it just almost seems to me that if Ange pulls this off and wins the first European trophy since '84, it almost makes sense to bring him back because he actually is already in place and he kind of already is a fit for the players that are there. The one thing that I will say is that he understands the strengths and weaknesses of his squad, and he also realizes those that he can't trust or who can't perform. And you would probably assume that both of those are going to head out the door this summer.
Yeah, what I was going to mention.
That would also be very advantageous for Ange next season.
Yeah. What I was going to mention, just let me get your take on this, because this is something. There's lots of things tactically in that have really annoy me. We won't have time to go into it today, right? But when we get to stage, not just under Ange, under previous coaches, we do well against Frankfurt, we win a London derby, and he goes, give the players the day off. I've never been happy with that. I mean, I don't expect you to come in and train the next day, but you can bring the players in, you can show them videos, you can do tactical analysis, you can do things, what we've done well, things that we've done wrong, and you can go through all of that. I'm not one of I remember when we first beat Arsenal at the stadium 3-0, it was the loudest I've ever experienced in the stadium, right? And then you give the players the day. And I took pelters off of fans on a show for saying, why are you giving them a day off? My boss wouldn't give me a day off back then when I was still working, right? So there's always something you can be improving on, with players, sitting them down in a room with videos, coaches, etc.
Yeah,
data.
What's interesting is I tend to agree with you, right? There's 2 types of coaches. There are disciplinarians, and then there are players coaches. And I like to think Ange is more of a players coach because he does run cover for his players all the time. He never ever really calls out his players in the media. He tries to keep it loose. And one of the things that I don't like is the fact that regardless if it's a win or loss, he always gives the players off the day after. And one of the things that I wouldn't mind seeing is, like, if you win, I can understand it because you actually have won a match and you've earned the right to actually potentially have that next day off. But if you lose, there should be an emphasis on making sure that you understand why you lost and where you can correct it. That's the thing. There was times this season where they would only have 2 training days in between matches. You know what I mean? There was no time on days off, let alone for proper training.
And then Steve, on top of that, of what you said, which makes sense, I still wouldn't give them any time off. You get how many coaches say during the season, well, we're playing to get every 3 days. I haven't got time to work with the players. What a contradiction in terms that is. We're not saying you're knackered, we bring you on the training field so as you get injured. We're not saying that. What I'm saying is get in them rooms, do all that data analysis with these coaches to improve on your weaknesses. Right? That's what I'm saying. I just think.
Well, I think it's
unprofessional.
Well, I also think it goes to I think we've spoken about this before on many streams. I think it goes to the strength of the squad in the first place, right? Like, if they'd have gone out last summer and bought more, players with more experience, Europa League wise, Champions League wise, just got a couple more people that would have just been able to have, lightened the load. But, they went for players that at best had 38 games plus a couple of cup run, half a cup run in their legs. And then they top that off with inexperienced teenagers who, for everything they've done, I mean, like he's harped on about, it'll be invaluable. And I guess, all right, it'll be invaluable to them. I will take nothing away from that statement. But I would like to have been in a position where we were 3-4 up, 3-4-0 up in games, and they were getting 15, 20-minute runouts in games that we were controlling, and they were getting, that's what Manchester United used to do, and I know that's a really high bar, and I know that it took them a while to get there, but that's I would have preferred that to have been the way we handle things. And then, I mean, there's no way of saying for sure, but you can't tell me that wouldn't have, I know they had a lot of minutes.
That's ideally what Postecoglou wants, right? When you look at his league, when you look at his double winning season with Celtic, you look at his title winning seasons in Japan. Most of his team were in that 27, 28 range. Now, it's not to say that he didn't have young players; he did, but that's the whole point. Is he wanted that experience up front to run his attack tactically, where you can actually pick and choose when you're going to run out Wilson Odegaard or Lucas Bergvall or Archie Gray. The last thing he wanted was to be put in a position where those guys were getting huge minutes. And unfortunately, that's what ended up transpiring. Yeah. You're absolutely right about that.
And Lord Rodney Trott makes a great point here, because he's just, he said, could give us a list of 30 players we never heard of with a bit of research. It would have improve us. And, you touch on a good point, and it makes you wonder what our scouting team do sometimes, because I also see other channels. I mean, Dave on Irish Hotspur, I see Sean Butler on Spurs Talk Show. Just there's so many good players out there that really don't, especially with, I know it sounds silly, but even with like Football Manager, even though there wasn't a release this year, Football Manager, FIFA, or EA Sports, whatever you want to call it, the amount of knowledge that people have got now about players in other leagues that actually, it doesn't always pan out, but even just like names of players that I wouldn't know, but for the fact that they're on, the best 25 upcoming players that you can buy for your career mode. So then, of course, you sparks your interest, and you actually look at these kids in real life, and then you end up looking at other kids and other players. And there's just so many talented players out there that you just look at and you think, actually, you could do a job for us. And I guess it's just, maybe that's unfair, because again, this season especially has been decimated. But it's clear as day what this team needs, and I just
we have felt better. We have felt better, because if you go back to when we sold Gareth Bale, and all the news was we sold Elvis and bought the Beatles, right? That was the little tag that was going along, and there was no thought into the players we brought in. All right, we got Ericsson out of 7 players that was good. And you could argue about the rest, Crankier and others and things like that, but and Lamella and people like that, whether you like him or not. But Ericsson was the standout player out of that. At least now, I think it took us getting...
Not Nasser Chadley?
No. And Nasser Chadley was okay. It wasn't exceptional, but it was okay. I think he was a good servant while he was with us.
Good-looking lad, though. The ladies loved a bit of Nasser Chadley.
And it really took us to Levy letting his hands off the recruitment side of things when we get in Lo Celso and Ndombele in, right? Mm-hmm. So then after that, we start getting in with and we started changing things and we ripped up the academy. There's been lots of positive things like that in the club, especially from the academy level upward. And Paratici takes a lot of credit for that, right? Ripped it to pieces, paid young players money,
I got to ask you a question real quick, and I know this might be a little off topic because you were talking about the players that came in with Gareth Bale for Gareth Bale. What year did Peter Crouch come back to Spurs before he ended up at Stoke to finish his career? Because I know he came back after Liverpool, I think.
He came back after Portsmouth, didn't he?
Yeah.
Hang on.
Even Defoe went.
Well, is there a particular reason you're bringing up Peter Crouch?
Oh, because it kind of ties into our
because the way that Champions League away to Man City, didn't he? That was
he went from Liverpool to Portsmouth, and then came to us 2009 to 2011.
I
guess he did. He did spearhead us into the Champions League that year. Yeah.
Because that headed goal, nice header as well.
Yeah.
No,
and then went on to play.
It just kind of goes. I was going to say because it just kind of weaves into the talk about our transfer strategy, and that's those are the certain type of players that generally end up with Spurs.
Yeah. I think I'll try. You bring up Peter Crouch, but he obviously was playing at Portsmouth with Jermaine Defoe, and that's one of those transfers that always baffled me. Why we sold him only to bring him back, and the same with Robbie Keane. We sold him to Liverpool only to bring him back, and then we sold Berbatov, and we sold Carrick. We just, it just drives me mad, drives me absolutely insane, and then we do bugger all with the money. But yeah, like you say, Adrian, we are kind of failing better, I suppose, if that's a positive. We're spending more money on crap and then spending money to get rid of that crap. So I don't know.
Not that
but I want to try and be as positive. I want to try and finish on a positive because we do, as I say, we'll touch on the lastly. We'll get some score predictions for the upcoming week, and we'll get a couple of some plugs going for some channels. I never like to bet against my beloved team, so I am going to say I'm going to go for a Desmond on Sunday. I think somehow we're going to pull it out of the bag. Liverpool are going to get their title, and we're going to come away with a point. So a cheeky Desmond 2-2. Adrian, what do you think?
I've already gone for a Desmond 2-2 as well.
Have you?
I didn't mention the fact that I think we'll get it by superb goals like a Wanyama type or an Edmund type goal at Liverpool, because that's what you usually need to do to get a result and come away with something, right?
Yeah.
I think we'll get the draw. They'll get their title. Their well-deserved title.
All right. And Steve, what do you think?
So here's the thing, man. I appreciate your guys' your enthusiasm. I really do. But knowing
here comes the but. Here comes the but.
There is a but. There is always a but. So the thing about it is we know that the majority of this first team has been focused on Europa League, and Drew, you mentioned earlier that you were just hoping things would come back together as soon as the injuries. Mm-hmm. Most of the players returned from injuries, but at that point we were already out of 2 cup.
Give us your team at the same time, Steve. We didn't do that. Give us your team.
Yeah. And, unfortunately, then there was only Europa left to play. That was the only stage in which they can win a trophy. And for a while now, the league has been an afterthought. And knowing how Ange Postecoglou rotates ahead of Europa League, we're probably going to see another mixture of what we saw against Forest as well, too. So I am going for a 3-0 win for Liverpool at Anfield.
Oof.
The history is not on our side when it comes
All
to
right.
Liverpool. Hey, listen, here's the thing, man. I can totally be a fan of Tottenham Hotspur, but it doesn't mean I have to be delusional. This is not like Dermotron saying 7-0 Spurs. You know what I mean? But my predicted lineup, that's what you were asking, right, Adrian? Predicted lineup?
Yeah.
Vicario in goal, Udogie left back, Van de Ven Danso, and then Jed Spence on the right. I got Madison Kulu and Bergvall in the mid. And then I got, I'm going to go Tell Slinky Odebear on the right. And my first off the bench is Brendan Johnson, Hapstar, Archie Gray, and Ben Davis.
I'll go with Vicario in goal, right? I think Gray will play right back. I think, well, fair enough. Gray will play right back. I think Spence will play left back. I think you'll see Davis and Danso as the midfield centre backs. They did all right second half recently at game time. I'm resting Bergvall in midfield, but I'm going Madison, Kulusevski, and Bentancur. And up front, like I said, I'm playing Solanke in the middle because you've got a choice of giving him a half and Richarlison a half.
Oh, yeah, Richarlison. Yeah.
Right. So I'm playing him in the middle. I'm playing Johnson on the right because he doesn't start against. To me, I wouldn't start him against a team that's going to come and low block us, which Bodo will. Right. But on the right hand side, I would really like to save Son and Tell. So I'm playing Odeberg. So, I mean, I'd play Johnson on the right and Odeberg on the left, actually, for this one, because I think it gives you the choice of Johnson and Tell. But Tell could well play a part in this, but I mean, play a half or something. If Johnson, it's still solid, but with Madison, we've got it in midfield in Madison and Kulu more time in his legs. If not, I mean, but you could actually see, oh, God forbid it, you could actually see Basuma starting this game in order to leave and leave Kulu out, leave him on the bench. You're going to need some creativity at Liverpool if you're going to get anything out of this game. You're going to need it, and Madison just gives us the most creativity. So, yeah, I mean,
plus he had last week off as well.
I don't think we'll go Basuma and Sarr in midfield, and I think Bergvall gets the rest. But we see that midfield's probably the hardest choice for me. You can make mistakes up front. It doesn't really matter if the forward makes a mistake, but it makes a mistake. If you're making mistakes in midfield and in the back four, it's more critical. So, but we'll see. We'll see.
I also wonder why.
Hang on, go on, Steve.
I've sat back thinking like why Ange is continuing to roll out near full strength league, squads for league matches, knowing that chances are you're not going to get a full 90 from at some form or another. And I'm wondering if he's doing it so that it makes sense. It makes sense for him to describe during job interviews in the summer. When he's going to his next time, when he's trying to explain to his next potential owner what went wrong and what were you trying to do, and then he has starting 11s that actually he can explain. I
think the wise thing to do away at Liverpool is give Madison and Kulu half each. But we've got to have some creativity out there. We've got to have it. And Bentancur has been playing pretty regularly, isn't he? So, and you see how it goes regarding whether Basuma starts or not. But his heart ain't been in it. I think he knows his days are numbered, and I just don't trust him now. I think he doesn't. He's not. Whatever he does, he's not going to turn his Spurs career around towards the end of the season, is he? So
No.
I'd rather, if that was in that case, well, you got the 3 from 4 in Madison, Bergvall, Bentancur, and Kulusevski. Happy birthday to Decky yesterday, by the way, as it was today, I think.
Yeah. I think also you can add Donnelly. You can add Donnelly to that next year as well, can't you? I think he's going to come back and get some minutes, hopefully, somewhere. But I think we've been going almost 3 hours, and I do have to wrap it up myself. But I just wanted to say once again, thank you to everybody in the chat. Nita's gone for a 1-2 to us, and Daniel's gone for a 3-1 Liverpool. He's also said we'll be lucky to get 15 million for Basuma, which I'm inclined to agree with. Thank you, Daniel 90. Big up for being here as always. Lord Rodney Trotter, thank you for giving some shouts at the end and giving us some names to look at for our scouting. Thank you to everybody else that participated in the chat. JSY that came in and said hello to Adrian. JSY Talks Football Fan Channel. And then we've got the usual crew, obviously Nita, Archer, big up Kirsty who popped in. Who else was there? We had some people up at the beginning. Ben Kaufman actually popped in to say hello. Jeremy, Paul Brown. So yeah, anybody I've missed, I apologise. You all know who you are. Thank you so much for coming and saying hello. Mr. Chang as well. Steve, I want to thank you to you for giving us your time tonight. Quick plug of the channel. You are obviously over at Stateside Footy. What have you got going on this weekend?
We have the morning Spurs, which goes down tomorrow. Saturday morning Spurs, which goes down tomorrow morning at 7:00, and that would be 12:00 UK time. It's always fun to do a little weekly Spurs chat. Tomorrow night we have the MLS live stream. For all those that are interested in watching American soccer, we do have a really good domestic league out there. And tomorrow night it will be it's finally a non-Sounders live stream, because generally speaking, it's usually tailored around the Sounders. This week we're doing the New York Red Bulls and CF Montreal, so that should be a good one, a little Eastern Conference matchup. And then on Sunday we have the pre-match build-up for Liverpool. We have the watch-along, and then we have the wrap-up. So I'm hoping things progress well this weekend, because the last thing I want to do is do a watch along where we're getting dummied 4-0 and Liverpool gets to celebrate. Right. That's the last thing I want to avoid. So
fair play. Completely understand that. Adrian, any last words? You want to give the channel one last plug before we end off?
Sunday's show goes out at 9:00 UK time. Ian will be hosting. I haven't spoke to him yet, but he will be hosting. I should be co-hosting with him. Don't know what guests he's got on he's looking for at the moment, but I'm sure there'll be quality guests. We always have quality guests on our show. Just a big thank you to everyone who's watched us, viewed us. Leave it, like I say, if you could leave a comment, smash the like button, and subscribe to the channel. We would like to get the subscribers up. We would like to get more in the chat channel, because then we can start thinking about doing memberships, but there's no point at the moment. So we'll wait to the end of this year with StreamYard, which will be June, and then I'll chat with Drew and Ian and Tom about it then. And they can really decide whether we do or not, if we're carrying as we are, and wait another year before we decide to do it, or 6 months or whatever. So
cool.
So thanks to everyone again.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you to Steve once again. Thank you to Jack. Thank you to Chang. Thank you to everybody in the chat that's been listening across multiple platforms. And with that, enjoy your weekend. Come on, you Spurs, and we'll see you soon.